where all are welcome to join. From noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now.
Alrighty. Tux, can you hear me?
All right. Yep. How's it going?
Good, man. Good. Chilling. Still in Sicily.
Still eating his fine food and drinking his fine wine.
I am. I actually didn't eat the entire day today. I just started snacking now. Literally just eating Parmesan. And
dude, this guy's literally got a giant block of Parmesan. Incredible.
And regatta salada. Yeah. Parmesan, man, very healthy. Look it up.
It's probably very nice, very fresh.
Obviously it's got good protein, but it has a good like amino acid profile. It's got some good rare aminos in there in Parmesan. Yeah, it's delicious.
Very nice.
So yeah, if anybody wants to start selling Parm on XMR Bazaar, shipped directly from Italy,
exporting it from Italy. There you go.
I obviously am constantly thinking these things. Anything I see. So yeah, man, what's going on? I've been completely off the radar. What am I missing in the world and in crypto? Status quo?
Yeah, status quo. I mean, there was a bit of a fire sale earlier this week. But other than that, pretty much same old, nothing too crazy going on.
I heard like Vic posting that Cake got like I think a record-breaking amount of exchange volume for the third-party.
Yes, that was during the fire sale. Unfortunately, I don't have any further details on that. He's trying to get like more in-depth details because what I suspect, this is my personal suspicion, based on previous data, is that it was mostly people buying Litecoin to convert it to Monero. That is one of the most common uses of our exchange providers and swap services is people buying Litecoin to then convert it to Monero.
What was the peak? But were you guys seeing a peak volume? Oh, I guess you don't know any of the other data, right? So you just know that you saw.
Yeah, I don't have details right now. That anecdotally, that's what I believe based on previous data. But yeah, that was very interesting to see. Yeah, there was like a super large 20% dip pretty much across the market, except Monero didn't dip that much. But everything
seemed to be a little bit more. From what I was seeing, it looked like it's been pretty resilient. I don't know.
Somewhat. I mean, it's still like
observation or
not like, it's never really quite fully recovered since the Binance thing, so it doesn't have that much to go down. But yeah, it's not being affected as much by these sudden sellouts of people just spamming the sell button. I mean, even Bitcoin for a time was down like 16-17%, which is a lot, and Bitcoin's usually the one that holds up. But yeah, everything across the board was down, so people were buying up. The smart people, they were buying up, and a lot of buying was happening in Cake Wallet, so it was like a really big day for that.
Beautiful to see. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of more people just talking about Monero though. I'm seeing like a lot of like Bitcoin privacy people starting to talk about Monero more. At least that's my observation on Twitter. I'm seeing more of that, which is obviously a good sign. That's what we need to see. I think a lot of people will be, obviously people have been disillusioned with regards to Bitcoin for some time, but it seems to be hitting an all-time high in terms of like the group of people that have realized that, you know, Bitcoin is not what it was meant to be, right? I feel like that camp is growing. Seeing like the big cash, like Bitcoin Cash camp grow larger. The Monero camp. I don't know. That's my observation. What do you think? You think that's accurate, or you think I'm just in my own little like bubble over here?
No, I think it's accurate. It is harder to tell because we're in that community, so it's harder to tell versus someone who's looking from the outside. But I think it is accurate because I do see more and more people coming into the Monero space over time, and more people starting to accept the reality of the situation of what is Bitcoin. And you know, the whole narrative now is that it's just a store of value. Right? So as that narrative gets pushed harder and harder, people are going to legitimately be looking at other chains to actually provide currency that Bitcoin promised to once be.
Exactly. Yeah. Are you familiar with Vlad? The Vlad Costilla. Vlad. He has a.
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty popular. He's been talking about Monero a lot. I actually reached out to him to see if he wants to come and be one of the hosts for Monero, like one of the MCs for Monerotopia.
Oh, really?
So he's looking into it. Yeah, he's just got to figure out his budget, but I think he's obviously interested to be on the Monerotopia stage as a.
I mean, heck, even at Bitcoin conference, I talked to a lot of people about Monero. I probably talked more about Monero than I did Bitcoin there. Not even necessarily intentionally. There's a lot of people that came up to me and wanted to talk about Monero at the Bitcoin conference, right?
Did they know you? Did they know you as like?
There was some people that knew me, but I had this little tiny Monero sticker on my jacket when I went to one of the whale parties, and so people came up and like, "Oh, Monero, yeah." I just put that as like, you know what, maybe someone will like notice it, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that were interested, and they're like, "Oh, they liked Monero," you know. So I think the majority of people in the Bitcoin space like actually don't care that much about being a maximalist. There's like a small but very, very, very loud minority, particularly the people who are more towards like positions of power that are making a lot of money, that want Bitcoin to stay like the king because it's making them a shitload of money.
Right.
But like most people, I don't think really, right? Most people, I don't think they really care that much, to be honest.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, I do feel like the maximalism is getting more extreme in some way, but it's. I don't think the movement itself is growing. I think like the movement outside of maximalism is growing. That's my observation, though. Just bringing up XMRtopia.com, guys. We launched this last week. It was this project was basically driven by Fiat Demise. He did a fantastic job with. Project managing it, getting it off the ground. We had a lot of people contribute, help make it happen. But yeah, it's live and we'll be using it. So if you haven't heard about it yet, you can go to xmrchat.com/MoneroTalk. I'm going to log in right now. I'm going to log into my account. But you, as somebody who's sending a tip, you don't need to log into anything. You just go to xmrchat.com/MoneroTalk and you'll be able to send us a super chat live. They're going to display here, as you can see, but they'll also display in the actual comment window via Twitch using the Twitch API. So you can send a tip now. Go to xmrchat.com/MoneroTalk. Try it out. Whatever. Send 10 cents. Just use it. Get used to it, because hopefully this won't be the only live stream where you're using this tool. We're hoping to get other popular streamers to start using this. Obviously, people like early adopters would be people in the Liberty movement, right? I think those people would see the value in this, the value in being able to receive your super chats without going through any bank or third party, without losing any fees, and most importantly, being able to do it in a censorship resistant way. So if you want to try it out right now, just go to xmrchat.com/MoneroTalk, and within a couple of seconds, basically, you can type in a comment and send a Monero tip. It's super cool. So obviously, anybody that sends them in, I will post those super chats up so people can see them on screen. But yeah, I just wanted to remind people about that. The other thing is Copa Monero. Actually, Tux, I guess I can just bring it up. Might be better for you though. Pushing my luck here with internet. Yeah, bring that up
okay at the moment. I got you. Yep, no problem.
Let me stop my screen.
It's Copa Monero.
Copa Monero. We have the next Copa Monero game coming up today. All right, so it's showing 14 point. If you go to the top, 14.5 X. Go all the way. Scroll all the way to the top. Yeah, there we go. So far we have raised in terms of prize 14.56 Monero. So we started off with 10 XMR, and then we were saying anybody that donates to the Kuno, a third of that is going directly to the prize. The other 2/3 is going towards funding the actual thing. Believe it or not, there's a lot of expenses.
I need like a sound effect for this. But Nihilist tipped $5. Insert anti-governmental Monero meme here.
Fantastic. Greatly appreciated. By the way, any of these tips, I think I promised last show in my Italian wine drunken stupor that all tips, but actually that's a good idea. All tips will go to the development of XMRtopia.com. So the development, the marketing. So I'm going to put all the funds raised from that towards the project, which is super cool. So any donations you make. So greatly appreciate that, Nihilist. But yeah, so far for Copa Monero, we have, I think we raised like 15 Monero through the Kuno. You guys can check out the Kuno. The link to it is, obviously, if you just go to Kuno, you'll see it there. Any donations there, greatly appreciated. Copa Monero has been, it's obviously not a project that's looking to profit in any way. We're just looking to break even. So we're putting a lot of our budget from Monerotopia conference into it. We wanted to make this happen. We made a promise. And honestly, it's been pretty magical. The audio-visual has sucked in many ways, but we've been working things out. Alessandro's trying a completely new technique this time. He's really freaking putting so much work and energy into this project. So at the very least, guys, check it out. 2 games I think are streaming later today. We have, if you want to scroll down now, Tux, I think we have Bawdyanarchsit playing Basic Swap is the next game. I can't really even see that. I don't know. Yeah,
it's
you see the
just
schedule
a bit blurry.
For scroll up where it shows the schedule.
If I go here, it actually shows the so this one's starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. This one's this one's today, 2 p.m. Eastern. This one's going to be tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, and this one's going to be tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. So we've got Bawdyanarchsit versus Basic Swap happening in a few hours, and then tomorrow it's Pirate Chain versus Exolix, and then also tomorrow it'll be Monero versus Monerotopia. Wow, they've got like basically it's competing against
basically
each other.
Anybody whose name. Yeah, they're people that have. These are all sponsors. People that have donated. Obviously, Monero. I was running out of sponsors, so we used Monero and XMR Bazaar, using our own companies to get them. Why not, right? But yeah, Bawdyanarchsit, they're up there because they sponsored the Monerotopia conference, so they get a slot. Basic Swap, same thing. Pirate Chain, same thing. And Exolix, which we're very happy to have on board. They're a great instant exchange, by the way. It's very low competitive fees. And very privacy centric. Obviously, no KYC AML. I don't know of any shotgunning KYC AML that has ever happened on that platform. But we're gonna have them on, and we'll interview them so people can learn more about them. But they're basically just another instant exchange. So yeah, today we'll have one game happening at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's Bawdyanarchsit versus Basic Swap. Tune in. You can gamble on these games. Obviously, that has nothing to do with us, but there are ways to gamble on it with Monero. We've advertised that on this, let people know about that as well on the show. It's called Sigma Nero, I believe it is. There's a way to do it peer-to-peer.
Sigma Nero.
Yeah, use your Monero in a fun fashion. You could gamble anonymously peer-to-peer with Monero at Sigma Nero. But that's it. I'll be tuning in later. Oh, sweet. We should get the super chats going on Copa Monero. Maybe we'll have them go in the super chats. We can figure that out.
Shortwave Surfer 2009 tipped 25 cents. You guys never posted the links to Reddit/Monero.Town. Shortwave Surfer, I'm sorry. I know there's like a lot of places to post stuff.
What is he?
I guess they probably.
What is he asking?
That's probably never got to. The links to the stream, I guess, was never posted to Reddit/Monero.Town. I feel like somebody at one point was like always posting to Reddit. I don't know who it was. Maybe I can start doing that. And Monero.Town. Thank you, Surfer.
And
Shortwave,
by all means, if you see no.
Yeah, feel free to do it. You know,
I was going to say Shortwave. By all means, if feel free to post on our behalf. By all means. Who else we got here? Anon viewer.
Anon viewer tip 501. Thank you, Anon viewer. Very, very nice. No message. All right.
Fantastic. That is pretty freaking amazing though, right? I mean, somebody just tipped $5.01, completely freaking peer-to-peer. Went directly to our wallet. Only fee paid was a fraction of a cent transaction fee. Nobody can stop that.
Little bit of a manual intervention because we're using StreamYard. You know, I have to click the comment and I have this is a perfect opportunity to use my soundboard with the funny sound effects I have on it. But it works. It's pretty good what you guys are able to work around. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't even know. What are you saying? You're saying like the comments should just show up automatically or something without having to click on them? Because I don't even know if I'd want that, right? Because it's like a real super chat, and then you pick and choose which ones go up.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Now, right? I guess it depends on how the streamer wants it set up. Some streamers will have it so that it automatically just shows on screen and it notifies you, right? So you don't have to look or click on them. But this is fine also. It's just more like a YouTube super chat, I feel like, where you have to go out of your way to choose which one you want to read.
Look at this, by the way. This freaking pickled mushroom as I drop olive oil into Nita's computer. Look at that thing. It doesn't even look real. Freaking delicious. Really good. Really fantastic. Oh my God.
This guy's living it up. He's not coming back to New York.
I don't know, guys. Yeah, like I've been thinking about it a lot. If I can somehow live in Sicily and make that happen. I'm not there yet.
Monerotopia on the move.
Monerotopia, you gotta see the world, man. The Mediterranean is really one of the few places where I go, like when I go visit, I feel like when I come back healthier than when I left, you know? It's one of the few places in the world for me like that. All right, let's keep it moving. Yeah, so we shilled Copa Monero. Obviously, Monerotopia.com. Tux, if you can just bring that up real quickly. Guys, like and share. We're at 67 live viewers. Truly, share, retweet, get it out. Come on, let's grow this. Yeah, and I'm always shocked at how small Monero, like our following actually is compared to what it should be. I mean, we have a very strong following, but when I look at the crap that like people are consuming on X and whatnot, it's like unbelievable. Monerotopia.com conference is happening November 14th through the 17th. If you haven't heard, that's awesome because that means you just discovered this channel. So welcome aboard. Check out our conference. We're asking people buy tickets ASAP so that we can get some momentum here. We know who's going, who's not. We've made a ton of progress in terms of adding speakers, adding sponsors, coordinating the whole thing. It's going to be freaking kick-ass. It's going to be 4 days instead of 3 this year. We have Amir Taki coming down, Rachel Rose. I don't know, Tux, if you want to scroll through the speakers. I mentioned last week, Cody Wilson is on the brink. I probably shouldn't say it until it's like completely confirmed, but Amir said he thinks he's in, and now we're in a chat trying to make that happen. So hopefully, fingers crossed. That would be super cool to get Cody Wilson down there. I was actually just reading.
Tux, I don't know if you've seen this. For coming and watching the stream and commenting. Cool to see you here.
Oh, thank you very much. Is that like a big account, or that's just like some regular guy?
Yeah, he's a pretty big YouTuber.
Oh,
And this
sweet.
is very
Dude,
true. Most
help
people
us.
only care about Moon. The Monero community is real and healthy. Yeah, that's what we're saying, man. The Monero community really cares about the technology and about just using a cryptocurrency, which is probably why the
On-chain,
price isn't crazy, but that's not what we care about, right?
very true. On-chain gaming, check out XMRchat.com. Maybe get him using that. And please get the word out about the Monerotopia conference. But I wanted to show this. Are you familiar with this book, Tux? Or this series?
I think I've seen it before.
So like Amir Taki and Rachel Rose have been putting these together. This is actually the second edition, of which I just got at the MoneroCon, which is very cool. And I was reading it on the beach today. And actually the first chapter is by Cody Wilson, which was very, very cool. Very cool. So recommend people try to get their hands on this. If Amir will be at the conference, and Rachel, so I'm sure they'll be bringing copies of this and selling them for Monero. I purchased mine with Monero, but it's reading things like this really help you recalibrate your principles in this space. Obviously, I think we do a pretty good job on this show, but it really kind of takes you back to basic principles from like a philosophical standpoint of why all this stuff is important to begin with, why the concept of fighting tyranny even matters, and why a lot of us have basically become agorists. That's certainly the direction I've trend towards, balancing that with the practicality of living in New York City and having a fiat day job. But it's basically my path, and being fully into Monero helps me get there. But highly recommend people check out this book. And I bring it up because Cody Wilson will hopefully be attending as a speaker, and he's one of the first writers in that book. Wrote the first chapter.
Very nice.
But we'll leave it at that for Monerotopia. Most importantly, guys, if you are attending, buy a ticket and please spread the word. Please spread the word. Gamer, what's the guy's name? Gamer.
On-chain gaming.
Should I know this guy? On-chain gaming. Dude, please do us a favor and spread the word. Spread the word on Monerotopia conference. All right, that's it. Let's keep it going. And on-chain, maybe you want to jump up later for the Views on Stage segment. That's at the end of the show. We let anybody jump up. We put the link, the StreamYard link. People can jump up and speak their piece on stage in the public forum. Tux, let's move it along. Let's get price going.
All right. Price report. Let's go.
Sweet. Cheers.
And now for the Monerotopia Price Report segment.
Hey, good morning, gents.
You, Bawdy, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Good
How about
morning.
yourself?
Very good, very good.
Oh,
Chilling.
we got a large
we
super
got
chat
another one.
coming in right now.
Damn.
Non-human 378 tipped $10, 2 cents. Awesome stuff. Keep the flame burning. Thank you so much, non-human 378.
Thank you so
Nice.
much, man. Like I said, all the tips will go towards further development and hopefully then marketing of XMRtopia.com. Go ahead, buddy.
Hopefully you guys survived the whole crash, the fake out crash.
I didn't even notice,
mean,
man. I literally did not.
played it
Was not
so
a part
well.
of it at all.
Yeah, for Monero,
I'm
it
sure you did
wasn't really.
too. Yeah,
What'd you
Monero
say?
wasn't that big of a deal, honestly. It was kind of...
Yeah, it was like a regular day in the life of a Monero holder.
How low did it go for Monero?
We tagged like 135 or 136. So
Just briefly.
yeah, like you needed notifications or something to actually be able to leverage that or have an order on the order
Like
books.
a buy order. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which I guess
Yeah,
you can get onto the decentralized platforms and then put an offer out for a flat rate and then hope you get there. So yeah, I didn't do that exactly, but like I said, I wanted to refill my bags and I wanted a better price than where we were at last Saturday. So I was able to get, or last Sunday, I should say. So I was able to kind of get that. So good stuff.
Fantastic, man. Yeah, give us the full story. I'll be listening in. I've been completely off the radar, so looking forward to the forecast.
So the main theme last week was kind of asking, is this the big one, right? Have we come upon the time where the tail risk demand destroying event, everything crashes, and the next crisis is upon us? My thinking last week was to say no, that's probably not the case. Things did rebound to the upside in a way. For Monero, so let's start with Monero because, obviously this is Monerotopia, so why wouldn't we do that? We're looking here at the daily Monero chart. Maybe we can drop into the 4-hour here, a little bit shorter time frame. Oh, wow. Okay, look at that. So this is a pattern that I've seen a lot. We are about to rebound to the upside. This is kind of like a stair step, like down, 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 just like one red candle after another. This is an induced movement to the downside before some major upswing happens. At least this right here is a very, very clear pattern that I've seen over and over and over again. I've seen it across multiple assets. It could be stocks, gold, crypto. It doesn't matter. Different asset classes. When you see something stair stepping down with this kind of like, I don't know, just consistency, candle over candle, whether it's the 5-minute, whether it's the daily, I've just seen this happen over and like I saw the US dollar versus the peso do this like a week or two ago, and then it just shot up. So my guess is that if you failed to get in last weekend on like Sunday or Monday here, if you failed to catch this right there, if you're trying to refill your bags, this would kind of be your secondary next best place to do it. So yeah, things with the Monero chart are looking steady state, which they basically have been for for the past few years, really, with a few pointed downside moments. But yeah, everything with the XMR price looks pretty good. At least it looks stable. One thing that we can celebrate here is that we actually did, relative to Ethereum, Monero actually did get back into these lower bands here after this major dip down. So we've been looking to this for a long time to at least hopefully tag this band area, which is something that has happened. So yeah, good stuff for Monero here. As usual, not too much exciting, too much crazy things happening with the price.
Me and the boys longing XMR as always.
Say again.
Me and the boys longing XMR as always.
Yep, 100%. 5x leverage, 10x leverage. Can you even long? I don't think you can long Monero with anything more than like 3x leverage. Like probably.
No, you really
Kraken.
can't. Kraken, I think, does 2 or 3x, but not any higher than that.
Maybe that's another reason why our price is relatively stable. There's just not this crazy leverage that can get liquidated on these let's just call them shitcoin exchanges. Excuse me, a little sip of my coffee there. Okay, so yeah, everything with Monero looks fine. I don't know if there's anything specific that people want to look at. The divergences are still oscillating around the 0 point, although somehow Poloniex has found it useful for some reason to actually for the last couple days be above everybody else and be above Kraken. They're offering, looks like a 0.2 to 0.3% above spot. So if you want to go empty Poloniex, I don't know why anyone here would be on Poloniex, but just in case. Monero versus gold has actually been moving towards the downside because gold is continuing to be in its bull market. So I'm perfectly fine with gold being in a bull market. I hold a decent amount of gold. I hold a lot of Monero as well. So yeah, this chart again, it's kind of like we like both of these assets. They are both freedom monies. So I don't really mind if this chart goes up or down, but that's what it looks like temporarily. We can even go take a look at the price right now. So yeah, gold is still in this channel that we're talking about, this rising channel, this rising upward wedge kind of pattern. I expect gold will continue to make bullish movements. In a lot of ways, this kind of pattern can be slightly frustrating because you're like each time you're like, are we going to break out? Well, no. And you're like, are we going to break out? Well, no, not quite yet, right? This pattern can continue to play out oscillating in this area for quite some time. At some point, it probably will break out, but it's very possible that it will actually break down first because even though I don't think that this is going to be the big one, that this crash that we had, particularly in the stock market, I don't think that this was like the big one that the show's over, pack it in. I think we are nearly reaching the point that it's almost a foregone conclusion that we will be having a tail risk demand destroying event. There's just too many things that line up, whether it's the macro and the charts and all the patterns we're looking at, or whether it's just the simple like political arena where it's like, okay, either they're going to steal the election for for the party in charge, or they're going to steal, or the Republicans are going to win. In which case, they're almost certainly going to hand Trump some kind of crisis, and they need a cover for all the financial stuff coming. Just everything lines up. We are due for some kind of recession, stock market crash. I just don't think this is it quite yet. So just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about here, the Nasdaq crashed. These are tech stocks. The Nasdaq crashed to the tune of 16%. Now that is definitely a more pronounced crash than we've had ever since the bottom. Let's see right here. Yeah, that was 12%. So the bottom here being at the end of 2022, when things didn't, that yellow line here, that's the pre-COVID highs. Things didn't quite make it down there. That's sort of a long-term target. Maybe it was too obvious, so things didn't quite get down there. But yeah, this is the biggest crash percentage-wise that we've had for the past couple of years. Nevertheless, I mean, this is after tech stocks did a 2x, right? 100% up. So really, in the big scheme of things, things are really just continuing on their normal trajectory. So
thank you, Liberty First, for tipping $5.
Say again.
Just thanking the super chat.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely with the super chats. If you hit the wow button, that would be totally fine, because then that'll catch my attention and know that we've got a super chat to read.
There we go. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, okay, so here's the S&P 500. We're looking at the regression analysis. That's what the red and the blue line is. The red is kind of like, hey, wow, we're doing really good. It's not the absolute upper boundary, as you can see. It's just like it was about as far as I could.
So yeah, did that.
Mr. Doug, I think your microphone is on, sir. I don't think he can hear us. All right, well, whatever.
Yeah, continue.
So, my microphone.
Bro.
All right, I'm talking to studio. Sorry about that.
It was on for like 2 seconds. There you go.
All right. So yeah, the red. Okay, so the blue line is the S&P 500 regression analysis. So believe it or not, Bitcoin has a regression analysis, and the S&P 500. Is there any way to mute him, Tux? Tux.
I'm trying, but it's okay. I think we're good. His internet's very, very, very bad right now, so it's hard to like interact with his profile. There you go. Sorry, continue.
I appreciate it. Okay, so yeah, this is the S&P 500. We're looking at the regression analysis. It actually has a beautiful regression analysis. That would be the blue line. So I think I have showed you guys this chart before. It's a decent time to take another look at it because of the 16% crash. So it starts in 1913, and the astute observer will know why we started the chart in 1913. And the blue line is the overall regression, considering all of the data. The green line is the lower boundary, and then the red line is sort of like the best I could do statistically to produce some kind of like, this is the very top, tippity top kind of area before I started feeling uncomfortable going any further. Okay, regardless, the point is that you can see that on the monthly candles here, in the big picture scheme of things, the S&P 500, yeah, okay, we are above the regression analysis a good bit, but it's really not like, it's not crazy high. So yeah, just in general, I do think that we're going to have a bigger crash. I just don't think that time is now. Although, we have to see, like, I can't sing victory just quite yet. Although on Sunday I was saying, hey, I don't think this is the big one. And then on Monday, basically stocks just went up, right? They opened, especially the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ opened at the very bottom, and then the entire week it basically just went up. So it recovered by about 6% there. Okay, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I just don't think this is the big one. We'll take a look at some of the macro to really reinforce that. So, for example, here's the reverse repos. This is money parked with the Federal Reserve overnight, and they get the federal funds rate for doing so. And effectively, this was the big driver. This was one of the big drivers of the entire bull market that we've seen thus far. So they've been taking liquidity from the reverse repos, which is just money sitting idle with the Fed, and then pumping that into risk. They've been putting that into stocks and other risk type of assets. So what it looks to me like they did to help save this market, and this is something we've been expecting that they would do, they would save some firepower, maybe for the elections. So we had kind of leveled off there, but then starting on Monday, really like Friday last week, they started pulling money out of the reverse repos, and this money had to have gone somewhere, right? So how much is that? That would be 400 billion down to 280. So they pulled 120 billion out of their reverse repos and probably pumped that into both bonds and also into stocks. So yeah, it looks to me like that was probably a big driver of being able to sort of put a stop under the market. Okay, that's fine. Like that's good for cryptocurrency in general, right? So we can take a look at the Bitcoin chart, right? Because everyone's, what is Bitcoin doing today? All of your Normie friends are like, how is Bitcoin? You're like, bro, I don't know any Bitcoin, and they're like, what? No, but okay, so yeah, Bitcoin. We had also talked about last week that that this was probably, like, if you're a gambling kind of person, that was a reasonable place to look for a stop. That was a reasonable place to take a long. I wouldn't take leverage there, but if you're a trader, that was a good spot to try and get along there and see if you can make some profits. So yeah, if you did that, if you were smart, you've made 20%. If you've taken any of the other shit coins that were out there, a lot of those coins made 30, 40, 50%. So there was plenty of opportunity here across the board for people in crypto to make a kind of a punt. You would call it a punt, right? We're just trying to make a little bit of a trade here on an obvious spot that seems like a good place for some support. So that is effectively what happened. So probably anyone out there that does a little bit of trading is a little bit happier right now, unless you just panicked. But I really don't think that people in the crypto industry right now, everyone is kind of the mindset of buy the dip. That mindset, I feel like, is I don't see it out there. I don't see people saying buy the dip. I actually see a lot of people talking about recession, but just the intuition that I have about the general market psychology of cryptocurrency participants right now is such that people are like, no, we're going up. This is bull market, buy the dip. Don't be scared. So I feel like one thing I do think that's happening is that this kind of don't be afraid, buy the dip. It's not the real crash. We might even get one more major crash before the big one, maybe even two big crashes before the actual big one hits. And I think the idea is to reinforce the mentality of people, like, don't panic, sell, get into the market, buy, stay long, and then the market's going to crash. And that's going to happen at a time that people don't really expect, right? It's going to happen at a time that people are saying, well, they've called for a crash, like 5 times now, and it hasn't happened. We just keep going up, right? That's when the crash is going to happen. When the general population, the plebs, and all the propaganda rag news, quote unquote, news outlets, when they're telling you, buy, that's when the crash is more likely to happen, right? That you can just fleece more people. But yeah, overall, let's take a look at the Z scores and see of the boomer coins, which are the ones that are winning. I guess we could say that XRP here has been one of the bigger winners for the past month or so. They especially had a thing. So they had a settlement for $125 million. They had this big long-running court case. Judge Torres, who was the judge in that case, she had done this like summary judgment thing, which was a big boost for XRP. For Ripple, they had won quite a lot in the summary judgment, effectively saying, listen, your network is not a security, although you guys sold investment contracts. And we talked about that multiple times here on the show. Those are two different things. Just because you sold investment contracts does not mean that your network itself is a security. And this is what, like, ultimately, after all said and done, this is what's going to come out of the whole legal system, whatever, at least from the United States, that for the most part, very, very few of these networks are going to be ruled outright securities as a network, at least the big ones, right? The major ones. Very few of them are going to be ruled securities as a network, even though the people that sold a lot of those early tokens, like their pre-mine and whatnot, that is definitely going and has been ruled as selling securities. In other words, selling investment contracts, right? You sold something with the promise of profit in return to people. They gave you money to your centralized enterprise that you were responsible, for those profits or to try and earn those profits, right? That is an investment contract, but that doesn't make like a digital token, a network itself, an actual contract. We won't get into the nuance of that. There will be appeals on both sides. XRP, Ripple will say, you have charged us too much. You shouldn't be charging us anything. And then and the SEC will say, no, this is wrong. The ruling was wrong, and they'll try and appeal that, whatever. Who cares? This case is basically over. I doubt that hardly anything will come out of appeal. But if you're wondering why is XRP,
Ripple, because the SEC wanted like $2 billion, and Ripple only has to pay like $100 million.
Yeah, so they did a really good job of spending everyone's money that that for all the pre-mine tokens that they continue to sell. They still got like 50% of that pre-mine that they got in their pockets. They're going to be selling something like, it's like another $1 billion of tokens or something crazy. But yeah, so they I mean they really can sing victory on this one. They actually did pretty good here. And if you're into the whole idea of contracts platforms, even if it's something like DarkFi, this is a good deal. Like this is a good deal for contracts platforms. It's especially a good deal for people that do pre-mines. But we won't get into that. But yeah, that's just kind of what's going on there in terms of price news, if you will. As far as everything else goes, you can see here that the Z scores aren't really showing us that anything. There's not really much that's standing out too greatly. Although we might say that TRX Tron is also doing relatively okay compared to the other coins. Okay, whatever. Bitcoin dominance continues to do. It actually has broken a key level now here as of today, or as of this week. So this right here was the bottom point that where we draw this line specifically because of that area. That was like in the last run up as the bull market was starting to gear up. You can see here at the bottom of the screen, that would be September 9th of 2020. So if we're looking at the 4-year cycle, we are at very similar points to here, but interestingly, we're actually up right here. This is basically because markets get front run. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of a key area, right? This is a key spot to look for. We draw this line right here at the very tippity bottom of that wick. You could also draw this line up here. Just know that it's a zone of resistance. Oops, I accidentally dropped the wrong line. This is a zone of resistance. So if we zoom in here a little bit closer, this area right there, that's a zone of resistance for Bitcoin, for Bitcoin dominance. So again, I typically don't have strong opinions on where this chart goes immediately. I think it's just a foregone conclusion that in big, broad bull markets, after Bitcoin has broken the all-time high convincingly, not just barely, accidentally broke it by a tiny bit and then pulled back and then stayed languishing below the previous. I'm talking like breaking 70K, breaking 70K, and then staying above 70K for 2 months straight, and then continuing just to put on gains on the track to 100K. When Bitcoin is on its path to 100K, that's when this chart is going to come to the downside and people are going to start speculating on the degenerate shitcoins. That will be led by traditional finance bros. Like, make no mistake, those guys are like totally super duper interested in shitcoins and getting all that leverage and getting all of the hype for all the other stuff. Plus, I mean, you got the meme coins, you got everything else in there that's in play at this moment. So Ethereum has relative to Bitcoin has been just sucking. So my hopes for this chart to actually break towards the upside have not come to fruition. It has actually gone towards the opposite and is now sitting at very, very long-term standard deviation clusters. These clusters are so long-term that so it's these guys right here. I don't even know if y'all can see that. We won't take too long on this chart, but yeah, so at this moment, the next place that you would look is like the most obvious support area would be the very, very long-term lower standard deviations. That's still quite a ways down, right? Like, so from where we are at the moment, that would still be a 31% loss of Ethereum relative to Bitcoin. Maybe one thing that's happening here is that Sol is actually stealing the thunder of Ethereum. Maybe since the contracts platforms is really just a complex way of speculating on basically just degenerate crap, garbage, and meme coins, Sol has like captured that marketplace for doing all that. And perhaps it's just yet another verification that people want main chain, even if your main chain is totally centralized garbage. Maybe they just want main chain. They don't care about layer 2. So there is a bunch of money in Ethereum layer 2. Let's not mince any words here. There's billions and billions of dollars in Ethereum layer 2s. But maybe Sol really is stealing some of that use case there. So that could be part of the reason for this chart's underperformance here from what I would maybe expect. Nevertheless, I think we should expect this chart to move towards the upside in any big bull market against Bitcoin. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, that's what that's looking like. So unfortunately, this one I would consider a pretty big miss for myself right here. So just being perfectly honest, Ethereum versus Bitcoin ratio, I was really, really looking for this thing to break towards the upside, and that's not what has happened. It could be also the case that it was just too obvious of a trade. So there was just too much opportunity to wreck this chart to the downside for people like me hoping it would go up. But hey, you know, I put that as a long-term position. I'm not even thinking about it. So this chart can do whatever it wants. I don't care. Ethereum should hold relatively okay over the long term, should hold reasonably good parity to Bitcoin, especially as the bull market comes. So that's just a long-term play I'm never going to touch until we get towards, you know, towards the higher levels once Bitcoin is broken all-time highs. Okay, let's take a look at privacy coins and see what they have done. Xano, we could start with Xano. It's in the top left for a reason. So Xano took a big dump, just like everybody else did, and touched sort of minus 30%. And it touched again like these very obvious levels. And you can see this chart quite. Let's go to the daily. You can see this chart fairly clearly. Man, let me look at here and see how you guys can see that. I really have to do something about how well you can see the wave magic on these charts. Let's go to the 12-hour. That should make it better. Okay, so this chart is doing a thing that, again, it's got this kind of like bullish momentum. It's at the moment, it's kind of, we might have entered a place with this Xano chart for a little bit that it needs to consolidate the volatility. So you can see, right, it established these lower boundaries here, kind of touched that, and then has been just barely touching it, slightly higher each time. But yeah, during the crash last week, Sunday, Monday, it basically touched the place that you would expect it to, and then came back up. I think that would be 40% from the very bottom. Yeah, to about 40%. And then, so at the moment right here, it looks like Xano's chart is going to be constrained. It's developing a pretty good constraint in this area. Although, because of how well it's doing during crash times, we're just barely wicked down and touched that, where previously it was like hanging out down there. So that's actually reasonably good bullish momentum that's building. What you would want to see on the Xano chart is for this thing to just kind of like continue oscillating in this area, maybe wicking towards the upside occasionally. That's really the kind of like continuing confirmation you'd want to see if you were trading Xano. There's not much to say about Furo other than I really don't like the way this chart looks. You can see it had a big crash with everyone else, and then it hasn't even recovered, right? It hasn't even gotten back to its previous levels or even to the lower standard deviation. As we talked about last week, these are already curling down. This is bad price action. You don't want to see, you don't want to get on the underside of the lower standard deviations, watch the lines curve down, touch it, and then come back down again. Like that just kind of spells further downside for Furo. So that's that would be my opinion on Furo. Pirate Chain looks like it's just kind of hugging the lower side of its range here. Who knows? It's so much of it was not pre-mined trademark, quote unquote, by their ASIC miner that mined 90% in the 2 or 3 years that they didn't really advertise that they even had a coin. Okay, so they've got a pretty heavily centralized supply, and it's going to be hard for this thing to make big gains without some kind of like impetus. That impetus will probably come from a certain group of anarchists in a certain geographic part of the world that will get bullish on it again. And sure, this thing will probably spike up eventually at some point. Yeah. So, okay. Then we got Darrow here. Darrow is touching. We said, hey, this is the place that we're looking for Darrow to touch. If you wanted to go for a long, that would be a good spot to give it a try. I don't like Darrow hasn't. Let's go to the daily. Darrow hasn't really recovered to any significant fashion. Although you might be able to call this a W bottom, right? This looks a lot like a W pattern. So this thing could potentially recover. I don't want to say that because it's just hard, man. When something has fundamentally screwed up so bad, like it's just hard to think that that's going to recover with price. But nothing goes down in a straight line, so you might take a Darrow long here. But don't cry to me if it doesn't work out for you, though. Like that's not the kind of risk I would be willing to take personally. Okay. Anyways, Zcash. I don't care about Zcash. Forget about those guys. Okay. Other than that, let's see. Check my notes here. We're gonna
Zcash has done a lot, right?
Okay. Zcash has done a lot in terms of like research, right? Done a lot in terms of developing new technologies. ZK proofs are being used in a lot of different places, not just in Zcash. I mean, that's cool, I guess.
No, I just meant a lot of price action, really.
Yeah, like it's been pumping a lot recently, and I still can't believe I picked up some Zcash for like, I know this is gonna be heresy, but I did pick up Zcash for like $16 a few months ago.
Awesome.
And now it's 40. I know, that's like, what's up with that? It's crazy. I guess it's having a little bit of a resurgence. Even though like transaction counts are incredibly low.
Nice trade, man. That if you picked it up at $16, that means that you caught it like, I mean, right at bottom of that wick. That's a beautiful trade, bro. Good job.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, all right. So I guess maybe we should cover Zcash more. Yeah, I mean that was a really
yeah, I feel like it's
brutal sell-off.
Yeah, I think we'll get it, guys. I think I'm delayed here, huh? I think I'm delayed. Sorry about
No, I
that.
think you're okay.
But I think we'll get into the news. But it feels like Zcash is being marketed and a little bit at this point. I don't know if anybody else getting that sense. I don't know if you guys saw the recent article, the Zuko article.
I did. Yeah,
Forbes, but
we'll cover that.
We'll go over that in the news.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to hear that because if they're trying,
but it feels like there's a strategic pumping, like a strategic pump that's happening.
If that's the case, and they're trying to really market this thing, and they're probably trying to take advantage of the Monero delistings and be like, well, we're not delisted. Yeah, I wonder why.
Yes, they're simultaneously shitting on Monero in the article in a way that's totally not true. So yeah, I'll go over that in the news segment for sure because it's probably the most interesting thing this week out of the price action stuff. But
yeah, I mean they gotta find the next round to dump their bags on. So all right, cool. All right, we'll wrap up with a little bit of a couple macro events here. So we got some new unemployment numbers, and unemployment continues to spike. It's called the SAHM rule, SAHM. The SAHM rule is once unemployment has risen beyond a certain level, or spiked up beyond a certain level, that it's a foregone conclusion that a recession is coming and that more unemployment is on the way. So yeah, we got new numbers, and you can see. So from here, let's drop a vertical line there. All right, so right there was the previous numbers, and then on Friday we got this last numbers up here. So that's another 0.2 increase in unemployment. So, anyways, the point is this chart continues to move towards the upside. This is again why I say we're nearly reaching that foregone conclusion point that a big event is coming here. Nothing else happened here since last week on that chart. The bonds have they sort of dropped off sharply as the market sold off, and then they've recovered a little bit. The big thing down here where bonds are overall almost not inverted now. It depends on which ones you want to look at. Obviously, the red line goes back further because you didn't always have like all of the increment of bonds. I can't remember exactly which one, but I think the red line is like the 10-year, the 1 year, maybe the 5 year, and maybe the 30 year. I think there was only like 4 of them that go back all the way to how far back is that? All the way back to 1962. So wait a second. Maybe it's the pink line. Okay, I'm sorry. Actually, it's the pink line that's the pink line is the bonds. There's only like 4 bonds that go all the way back to 1962. The red line is basically all of them. So yeah, anyways, the point is that we saw bonds becoming nearly almost not inverted now, depending on how you want to look at it. So that's part of our criteria here that we're looking at. Once these lines start to spike towards the upside and bonds start to spike towards the downside, both of those things happening simultaneously tells us that we are getting close, and that you should be battening down the hatches if you are in the. So here's an idea: if you're in traditional markets at all, what you can do is take a binary option, right? Because you don't want to take like a futures position and expose yourself to going bankrupt, right? Because you can actually, if you take a derivative or futures position on your own personal name, and that thing goes the wrong way, they can go after all of your assets. That's kind of how that works. So if you have a corporate entity doing it, okay, you might be willing to sacrifice your corporate entity, or you can do something like take a binary option that's far out of the money, that predicts a big crash in the market, and you can put like 1% of your net onto that binary option, and then just hopefully wait for it to play out when the market crashes. So that's one thing you can think about. Obviously talk to your financial advisor. I'm taking phone calls. Just kidding. I'm not your financial advisor. Not unless you pay me a lot more, Monero. Just kidding. All right. Anyways, guys, so that's about it. Monero transactions are flat, and there's nothing to talk about on this chart. 25,000 is what we're looking at. Yeah, things have recovered. Probably things will continue to recover through next week. There's something happening next week. Oh, there's some. We get inflation numbers next week. So I think on Wednesday, maybe Friday. I can't remember. Next week we get new inflation numbers. So the Fed is like, if we continue to get good data, we will decrease the interest rate. So I think probably if inflation numbers come down within next week, right? If we see these numbers drop again, especially if they beat expectations, then expect the markets to pump because everyone's going to say, oh, inflation came down. That means the Fed is definitely going to lower rates in the next meeting, which is September. And so, right. And plus there's still the reaction bounce off the bottom. So next week, like there could be some opportunity to trade that if you like wake up at the right time and then you're like hitting refresh on on your screen so that you can see what those numbers look like, and then you can take a long. Okay, whatever. So that's the price report today. Hopefully it has been useful for some DGen traders out there. Peace.
All right. Thanks as always, Bawdy. I don't think they're going to reduce the interest rate.
You don't think so? So
I don't think they
September,
can.
won't. They've been so the last meeting Jay Powell talked about doing that. He said that that it's likely. He didn't say it's likely, but he's definitely talking like, hey, you know, we think it'll be appropriate to reduce interest rates. We're going to be data driven. We can't promise next meeting, but it does seem like that he's talking dovish now. He's like very clearly like opening. He's not giving the forward guidance of a rate drop, but he's very like clearly opening that possibility. Maybe it's just talk. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it would be nice. It'd be nice for sure.
A lot of people wanting to get into a house that are waiting to get into a house.
Yeah, that's true. Very much true.
I even know there's people out there that are currently buying houses on the anticipation. So they're just going to...
It'll be dropped and then they can refinance immediately.
Exactly.
How much are they talking about reducing?
They probably would only reduce it by like 25 basis points. So 1/4%. But
yeah, that's not a lot. But
that's crazy.
It's not a lot, but that would also kind of break the seal, if you will, right? It's probably the fifth seal. I don't remember which one of Revelations, but no, like that sort of breaks the seal of them stepping down. Like that's the beginning of the end, right? That's the lead into the next crisis, is them starting to lower rates. You know, it could be something that happens over the course of six to 9 months, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, there's people actually buying houses out there right now under the anticipation they can refinance soon. Okay, guys, I'll hand it back over to you. Thanks so much, Tux. Thanks, Doug.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Crazy.
See you next time.
Crazy. Bawdy, thank you, man. Fantastic. All righty.
Looking a little bit blocky over there.
News. We got no guest today, so.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump into the news.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I might suggest turning off your camera, as it is definitely causing a delay now. Maybe give you a little more bandwidth available.
Yeah, I don't know. We were doing all right. Let me shut off my other devices here. All right. Take it away.
All right, let's jump into the news.
The Monerotopia Weekly News segment is sponsored by WizardSwap.io, a non-custodial cryptocurrency exchange.
All right, guys, I'm going to pull up the news here. All right. So to start off, this was mentioned earlier. Happy to announce that at KWallet users sees the opportunity.
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, it might be. Let me check the stream.
Yeah, go ahead. Share your screen. Did you add your screen to this stage?
Yeah, it's you. I see it on stream already. It's just you.
Okay. Oh, okay. Let me ask. Did
continue.
You play the intro? Because I didn't see it on my side.
I did. Yeah, I think you're just not getting some of the data.
Yep.
All right. All right. Yeah. So we covered this earlier. We saw our biggest single day purchases ever. I'm pleased to see that our users are using Cake for not only holding, sending, receiving, swapping debit card, gift cards, but also for using it as fiat on ramp. Which is cool to see that people, and I mean, yeah, that kind of echoes what Bawdy was saying, is that the crypto sentiment now is like, for just people in general, is just buy the dip. That's like huge. That's like been the sentiment for a little while now. So individuals, when like institutions and larger like holders are dumping and, you know, doing certain movements, individuals will usually take advantage, and that's exactly what we saw happen in Cake Wallet on that day. We had our biggest single day purchases ever, and I believe that goes across all of that's like aggregated data from all the on-ramps that we provide inside Cake Wallet. And I don't have specific data points on exactly what people were buying. We only have data into so much of that, probably for a good reason. But I would like to believe, and this is highly possible based on previous evidence, is that it was mostly people buying Litecoin to swap to Monero, because historically that has been the largest amount of volume that we've moved, is people buying Litecoin, and then we have an insane amount of Litecoin to XMR swaps happening in Cake, also, and those two are definitely connected. So cool to see. Next up, we have this tweet from Mark. What's his face? Just an email from ProtonPrivacy saying they are reviewing Monero after their podcast with Seth for Privacy. So basically, Proton updated the status of a couple of feature requests that are on their website for Proton. They have a dedicated feature request website you can go to and suggest stuff, and Monero payment option has been there for a really long time, and it has several thousand upvotes. And for whatever reason, Proton has just not, it's literally one of the top voted features on the feature request website. And for some reason, Proton has just not had support for paying for Proton services in Monero. But recently they did move it from no status to under review, which is cool to see. I mean, they've kind of said a lot. They've kind of had a lot of talk, like, oh yeah, thanks for taking your feedback, all the typical jargon. Haven't really done anything. So this could just also be that they're just keeping people on the line. But we'll see what happens. It would also be nice if they would consider adding Monero to their new Bitcoin wallet, which I'm sure was covered here a couple weeks ago while I was gone at the Bitcoin conference. And this is in reference to Seth's opt-out podcast episode with the CEO of Proton. So it'd be cool to see if they at the very least added Monero payment option. That'd be incredibly helpful, and that would really show that they aren't, just privacy LARPing like a lot of people currently believe they are. And of course, the responses aren't all super happy. Like, D-Martian, stop it. They're not considering it. They're forming their letdown speech. Don't you dash my spirits like that. Yeah, I kind of tend to fall on this based on previous actions of Proton. They seem to do a lot of good stuff, but also they just seem to also kind of LARP in a way and decide I'm just going to ignore the actual privacy coin, right, for our privacy products. Like, supposedly we're super privacy, but we're not even going to let you pay with it for a privacy coin. You have to use the most transparent coin because it's the biggest one, whatever. Yeah, I kind of agree with Bawdy here. They know it's making them look bad, so they have to pretend not to LARP. Yeah, I'm not to be a black pill. I just don't really have my hopes up too much, but we'll see what happens. I appreciate someone like Seth who's kind of able to bridge the gap while also asking some legitimate, serious questions. And if you haven't seen his review, his podcast, not review, his podcast episode with the CEO of Proton talking about the Proton wallet, he does ask some interesting questions. I don't agree with all the responses from the CEO on why they decided to go with Bitcoin, but appreciate Seth being able to try and bridge that gap there. And next up, we have this article, this interesting article that's had a lot of criticism. This was mentioned earlier. There's this article that's basically an interview on Zuko of the he was one of the founders of Zcash and the company that's behind Zcash. And this tweet specifically is from Zeno. Atrocious journalism. Calling Monero a zombie blockchain is laughable. Monero is the cryptocurrency of choice on darknet markets, the largest P2P markets that depend on the cryptocurrency. And this is an interesting interview because it's actually an article on Forbes. And I can go on here to see. Let's see if I can actually get to the article. I didn't have it open already. And Forbes usually won't let you immediately view them. Oh, okay. I got lucky.
There's a. Oh, you got lucky. Okay.
Nope. No, I did not. It's okay. I just pulled it.
I was gonna say there's another that link. That link I shared you, should have the archive link in it.
This is how you know I'm someone who prefers my privacy, is that I have to solve CAPTCHAs every time I go to a website. This is the life of a privacy advocate. And they're using, oh, I totally missed that one. And they're using the worst CAPTCHA system ever, which is Google's reCAPTCHA, which is just absolute garbage. And I probably, wow, okay, I cannot believe that actually went through. All right, let's check if we can query for this. And apparently they don't have one. Oh, that's great. Let's go to archive.org here. Archive.org probably has it. Really? Oh, it's probably because of this extra. Let me remove this extra crap at the end. That's probably what's causing it to not show up. There it is. All right, here we go. So this is a like an article interview on Forbes under the Forbes Digital Assets category. And oh, I'm getting blocked on here too. Oh well, that's fine. If you want to look through this article, there will be hopefully a working archive.org link in the description. It's essentially sort of an interview with Zuko, who is the CEO of Electric Coin Company, and talking about its history and what's going on with it now, and talking about how it's kind of a zombie blockchain, right? And there's some interesting responses to this. So this one particularly is from Fluffy Pony. I know we're all laughing at the Cardano community note on this, but the Monero commentary is egregious. Why Stephen Ehrlich penned his love letter to Zuko is beyond me. By comparison, Monero averages 17 to 28 transactions per minute, nearly an order of magnitude larger than Zcash on the top end, image 2. And people are paying for this at an averages fee of 6.3 cents USD per TX. That adds up to $1,542 to $2,540 USD a day in fees, over and above the block reward, 50 to 85x the fee revenue on Zcash. It's absurd to call Monero a zombie blockchain, and quoting your own article from March claiming that it is does not make it so. That sort of self-referential garbage does not benefit a journalist of any level, any integrity, or of integrity. Steven, it's time to do better. You're embarrassing yourself and the entire industry with this level of pandering. So basically, they were talking about how Zcash is a zombie blockchain and trying to revive it, and that's probably some of the pump that we're seeing with Zcash recently is this Forbes article. And as you can see here, here's an actual screenshot from the article. One thing is clear, 8 years in, few people actually use Zcash. The protocol earns about $30 a day in fees and processes just 3 transactions a minute. Its total fee revenue of 2023 was only $14,000. Additionally, while tokens such as Bitcoin and a prominent derivative such as Bitcoin Cash are up 250% and 211% since the market bottom in November 2022, Zcash is still down 18%. And this is after the token surged 64% in June. At its peak in 2021, Zcash had a market capitalization of $3.5 billion. Today, it trades for less than $500 million. It's not alone in its struggles. As Forbes pointed out in March, numerous billion-dollar crypto zombies roam the digital landscape. Blockchain zombie Monero, another privacy coin developed in 2014, has a 2.7 billion market cap, but like Zcash, almost no one uses it or pays fees. And then that's the tweet that we just read here, where Fluffy Pony completely destroys that totally bullshit argument. And you can look at the actual Monero transaction graph. We're not hitting the peak that we had during that attack, March, May, June, or June. This actually may have been organic. I don't totally remember. But we're sitting around 25,000 transactions a day, which is not nothing, right? And I don't know if he had attached a graph of
Tux, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, did you read the article? Were you able? Obviously, you weren't able to pull it up now, but did you read it before?
No, I didn't have no.
Okay. I recommend people check it out because it's obviously the journalist who's writing it was like clearly benefiting from writing this article, right? It's not like journalism; it's like a tough.
He's like getting paid, basically.
Yeah. And but it's interesting too. Even like trying to make it sound good, you read the article, and anybody with you know, a few IQ points would read into it and be like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, basically Zcash is described as, you know, it's like a startup, right? With venture fund backers, and they were upset with kind of the performance of what Zcash
So now
was
they're trying to
doing,
pump
what
it
was
back
pumped.
again. Yep.
Yeah, it's essentially what's going on. And the biggest difference between Zcash and Monero, like even more so perhaps than the technology, is just the way the projects are run by the community in Monero, right? Being truly open source, and what you see in Zcash, which is really a group of founders and funders that back the project, right? And it's that
trying to get
like
their
really
investment
is
back.
that is the primary difference between these two projects. It's interesting to see how that's played out, right? And because of Zcash's, you know, the way it's structured, it's evolved in a way that actually tends to make this design decisions that bend the knee, right? Because they're trying to integrate with the fiat world in such a way where they don't want to be too disruptive.
Get their money back.
Right, they're backed by real funders, like, you know, that stand to lose money, that also stand to whatever, perhaps like risk, you know, crossing some legal lines because they're part of this project, and that's affected their design decisions, and that's really the fundamental difference.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that.
Monero,
that's kind of my view on how Zcash has been also, is that I've never hated Zcash. I mean, I kind of like Zcash. It was the only other like I guess somewhat prominent privacy coin, and it's had cool technology, and now it's actually in a pretty great state. Like I was quite against some of the way that it was set up before, having a trusted setup and stuff, but in its current state of shielded Zcash, it's actually pretty good. And Zcash has always been a little more on the edge, whereas Monero has always taken more of a conservative approach and trying to be more, I guess, battle tested, using stuff that's more tested in terms of technology than Zcash. But it's always been cool to see what Zcash has been able to do with using slightly newer stuff. And in its current state of shielded Zcash, it's actually pretty good to my own understanding. But it's a shame how like the company behind it was set up, and of course all the funding that went into it, and how it's kind of just become left out because of some of these things and some of the past history. And then the fact that, well, yeah, it's unshielded and shielded. Just by doing that, you've immediately made it incredibly complicated for people to use. And there's like a bunch of address types now. It's become quite complicated, whereas Monero is incredibly easy. So yeah, it's, in a way it is a shame, but that's just how it was set up. And now they're trying to get their money back. And so they're going to do what they can to pump it. So it is.
Yeah, they are in a position to pump because they are integrated with exchanges because of these design decisions that they've made, right? So we'll see.
Unshielded only from exchanges.
Yeah. But don't give into it, guys. Don't pump Zcash. You know, it's like don't do them this favor. That being said, would love to have them involved in the conference. If any Zcash, I've said this before in the past. I don't know. Maybe we get Zuko to come down. I highly doubt he would ever do that, but would love to get some Zcash folks involved in Monerotopia.
All right, moving on. So I think this is the last article I have. This also was mentioned earlier. Ripple to pay $125 million in penalty in XRP case against the SEC. The fine was not nearly the $2 billion the SEC sought. The judge in the case, though, issued an injunction requiring Ripple to register if it intends to sell securities in the future. Federal judge Wednesday ordered crypto firm Ripple to pay slightly more than $125 million in penalties for improper release selling its XRP token to institutional investors. The total was far below the nearly $2 billion the SEC commission sought, but also well above the $10 million ceiling Ripple argued for in an April court filing. The fine represents remittance for 1,278 transactions that Judge Annalisa Torres said violated securities law. Torres denied the SEC's request for Ripple to disgorge more than $876 million in profits from XRP sales and pay $198 million in interest and in $876 million penalty. She did, however, issue an injunction Wednesday requiring Ripple to file a registration statement if it intends to sell securities in the future. So yeah, it seems like somewhat of a victory for Ripple in regards to what the SEC was trying to go for. And this has gone on for a long time. Legal action between Ripple and SEC has stretched more than 3.5 years. So this has gone on for a while, and it looks like it's finally come to a close, and seems like somewhat of a win for Ripple, considering the circumstance that they were under and what was going on. But yeah, that's that. So maybe Ripple will pump a little more if you want to try and do a swing trade on Ripple. Who knows? I don't know anyone that actually uses Ripple. I've never used Ripple myself, but if you're into that, I guess this is good news for you. And with that, I believe that's all the news I have today.
Fantastic, man. Thank you for taking over. Tux really is the backbone to Monerotopia show. We wouldn't be able to do without you, Tux. You're keeping the show going. I'm sure you could find something else
if you really wanted to.
All right, let's keep it moving though. Let's do viewers on stage. Last time we got cut off, so I know there's probably some people that are been waiting a week to get up here. So let's go ahead and do that. And if you want to run the guest segment at some point, maybe we'll make Alaska Anon today's special guest, and we could
Alaska Anon will be the guest. All right, I'll go ahead and start the viewers on stage. Let's do it.
It's the viewers on stage segment. It's that time where we invite you, the viewers, up on stage to comment on anything you've heard so far today, ask the guest a question, or maybe talk about one of the news topics. Come on down.
All right. The only person we have back here so far is Alaskanon. I wasn't able to get the new guest, so I'll probably just wait on that. If you join up, anybody is sent into the chat.
Let's go. Good morning, guys. Good morning here.
Good morning, Alaska. As always. Early morning for you.
6:30 where I am right now. 6:30 p.m.
Not that early if you're used to waking up very, very early.
Yeah, guys, we dropped the link in the chat. Go ahead and click on it if you want to jump up on stage. If you've never joined before, consider doing it today. Alaska, man, sorry about the other day. The internet was just horrible. I don't think we could post that interview. It's just
no, I feel you, man. Like it happened.
Yeah.
No, and then not only that, but we had a flood here. So I don't know if you noticed, but we had a flood and it kicked out the power like almost everywhere. So like that was the reason why, and that might be why my end didn't upload either or something. Who knows?
Oh shit! Oh, that was happening during the interview.
Yeah, it's rained really hard in Alaska for like I think like 6 days or something like that, and then
oh shit,
like snow is always melting throughout the entire summer. Right. So and then sometimes like warm rain will make the glaciers melt like really, really fast. Plus you have the rain, so you'll get like major floods.
There's a lot of places where it's flooding right now. Luncheon Gaming, good to see you. How's it going?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Sweet.
I do.
Yes, sir. You sound great.
How's it going, guys? It was a fun show. Interesting news.
Cool, man. Yeah, thanks for jumping on. Are you a big Monero fan, or is Monero new to you?
So I actually didn't even know the kind of privacy coin space existed like 5 months ago. And it wasn't until this last Bitcoin conference during the Edward Snowden speech where my eyes really opened up to the fact that with artificial intelligence and the fact that like Ethereum and Bitcoin have a public ledger and are only pseudo-anonymous, AI is going to be able to enable governments to really identify and track all transactions. And just on my own channel and my own experience, I've had a lot of issues with Ethereum being public and viewers trying to like find my wallets and like track everything that I'm doing, which is like pretty annoying, especially because if something like pumps really hard and I sell it, like it will bring a lot of hate and stuff, even though I'm just like making a reasonable trade, because they're like, like I saw this video from like 5 months ago when you were saying this was great and now you're selling it. It's like, yeah.
It's not normal when the entire world can see your transaction. I think is what you're trying to say, and you're experiencing it. That's crazy.
Yeah,
and most
yeah.
people don't realize how it's basically worse than using your credit card. I mean, at least your credit card is, you know, somewhat private to you, your bank, and the government if they want to see it. But being like Bitcoin, I mean, it's fully. That's the point, is that's fully transparent. I mean, someone can get your address, they can see how much Bitcoin you're holding at any given time.
Yeah. So I feel like the more and more of the Bitcoin community, because I think the Bitcoin community, at least a significant portion of them, really care about privacy and are misinformed that Bitcoin is giving them privacy. And especially like a lot of bigger influencers who don't dive into the technology that deeply. I hear a lot of misinformation, and I didn't realize it was misinformation, like I said, a number of months ago. And now I'm just like, oh my gosh, no one actually realizes that Bitcoin is the perfect surveillance coin, and like Ethereum is even less anonymous than Bitcoin, and we're just like fine with it. But so getting back to the point that I was trying to make, I think a lot more Bitcoiners, as the government starts to embrace Bitcoin, are going to start to realize, like, or at least question, like, why is the government like really starting to support this? Why is the government really starting to get behind this? And their eyes are going to start opening. So I feel like I'm a little bit ahead of the trend here, potentially by a couple years. But I do think that it will be slow at first as early Bitcoiners like myself, or there's like a couple other people on Twitter that I've realized, that I've noticed starting to like break away from that Bitcoin maxi mentality into the like stacking privacy coin mentality. It will be slow at first, but then I think the transition will speed up as you start to reach a critical mass. And I have no idea when that will happen, but I do think it's kind of an inevitable thing, because enough Bitcoiners actually do care about privacy, I think.
One thing, and you might already be on it, but
let me just jump in for a second. Tux, can you just play the guest segment that we'll just make on-chain gaming our special guest today? That'd be fantastic if you could do that.
The Monerotopia guest segment is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys.
All right, on-chain gaming special guest, Bawdy, take it away.
Yeah, so one thing you probably already figured out is that when you get those donations, especially those very public donations, you can flip that into Monero and then, you know, spend at least a few days on Monero. Typically, what you're better off is like, you're better off like getting a nice big fat stack of Monero, and then you sort of top that up, and then at irregular intervals, flip that back into Ethereum or whatever other chain that you're wanting to use for trading purposes. But yeah, if you just take those, like you've noted, if you just take those donations that you get on Ethereum and then you start trading them, everyone's like following your movements and tracking all your trades. Whereas if you say, you know, hey, I'm just going to put this into Monero, you know, and then periodically at irregular intervals. And the reason is that, so it's that Monero has very strong privacy, but the one place where it's weak is when you go from one exchange directly to another exchange. And so even if you're using an instant swap service, you're still looking at that same problem, where you're effectively have to assume that both of those entities are compromised and trying to conduct chain surveillance. So if you go straight from Ethereum into Monero and then you wait a couple days and then you go from Monero back into Ethereum with the full amount, that's going to be trivial for them to tie those two things together. So maybe you've already, you know, figured this out, but your best bet is just like kind of dumping those donations into Monero, and then at like some random time for some irregular amount, flip that back into Ethereum so that you can start trading that without, at least without all of your followers knowing what moves you're making there.
Yeah. So the thing about crypto gaming is that a lot of the stuff that I talk about, it's like, because NFTs are unique, if people know that I own something, it's like, I've given up on any sort of privacy, like around that. So I totally get what you're saying though. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I've kind of I've given up on privacy on Ethereum and Bitcoin. It's like I can have some pseudo anonymity, but if I want to talk about anything that I'm owning, or any games, and I like show a screenshot of like my in-game like items and stuff, it's like anyone can easily then figure out what my wallet is and track everything. So that's just what NFTs are about. And let me just like kind of broaden out a bit. Going back to, I mean, unless you had something else that you wanted to throw in there first, Bawdy.
I would have just suggested that you could potentially have 2 separate wallets. So one of them would be like your publicly facing Ethereum wallet, where you've got your NFTs, everyone can see it. You're like, yeah, here's what's going on. And then you could have sort of your private wallet where you're making your own private trades on the side that that other people don't have to know about.
Yeah, that's totally fair. But it's like there's one game that I was like really interested in and investing a lot in was Mirandus. And a couple of the NFTs that I owned for that game were like 6-figure NFTs. And it's impossible. It's literally impossible to do anything with something like that without making waves. And honestly, some of those are like rare enough that I think even if it was private, like I don't really know if NFTs and privacy really work together that well. So broadening out, like I was going to say, the realization I watched, I think it was Dr. Kim has like a lot of, I'm sure you guys have seen like all of his presentations. And I went through and watched all of his presentations after the Snowden speech at this last Bitcoin conference. And I just like couldn't even believe how naive that I was about even the fungibility or perceived fungibility of Bitcoin, and realizing that essentially like every single Bitcoin, because it has the transaction history, is almost like an NFT as well. It just really kind of blew my mind. And like the cards just really all started to fall at once around Bitcoin. And now all of a sudden, like these Bitcoin maxis that literally 3 or 4 months ago, I was like, yeah, like agreeing with them. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have no idea. And it feels like I was in the dark and now I see the light. And yeah, it was pretty crazy realization.
The cult of personality around that stuff it's the hardest thing to see, because there are a lot of people leading the sheep to the slaughter, and they are convinced that they're leading them to the promised land. And, you know, a lot of us who have seen that for quite some time, and I've been fortunate enough to be so paranoid that I pretty much just believe nothing until it's proven to be true. But like a lot of these people, they're completely convinced that the whole Bitcoin number go up thing is like the only retirement plan they need. And at a time in their life where this is like the most important time for them to be building their wealth and building their, you know, whether it be like their home equity or what, they're literally being convinced to put everything they have except for the ramen that they eat every morning or whatever into Bitcoin as like a retirement strategy. And that's the thing that freaks me out the most about this, because there are people who are like goading this on. But if you do that in any other place as a financial influencer, you know, that's like supposedly the biggest no-no. You know, that's one of the reasons why everybody says at the beginning of their YouTube finance thing, like, this is not financial advice for education purposes only or whatever. Well, you're not seeing any of that out of like the Bitcoin maxi Twitter crowd. It's just like, how dare you eat today when you could have bought more sats, bro? Stack sats. And like, and this is like the path to ruin for some of these more impressionable young people, right? Who are literally putting everything that they possibly can into stacking sats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And it's not like I don't think now, oh, Bitcoin's going to go to zero, but I do think that there's a lot of very disingenuous narratives around Bitcoin that are entirely false. And it's like Bitcoin can serve some purpose in the future, but it's not going to serve all of the purposes that everyone currently thinks that it's going to serve. And then the other thing is there seems to be this like very strong, almost religious like belief that simply because Bitcoin was the first, it is always going to be the biggest. When as it's like I invest in tech companies, and that is repeatedly not true. Like the first is actually almost never the biggest because it does pave the way, but then what ends up happening is the first mover gets complacent and innovators look at what the first mover did, think about ways to improve on that technology. And over again, you see the second, you see the third movers just absolutely taking up all of the market share. I mean, just look like Palm Pilot to iPhone. It's like people were saying, oh, the iPhone like doesn't have a keyboard, like it's not going to succeed. It completely destroys the entire market. Or like you have MySpace and Facebook. It's like, oh, MySpace was first. It's obviously going to stay the biggest. It's like, no, it got absolutely destroyed, and no one's even heard that term in years and years. And I mean, Yahoo, Google, like you just over and over again, there's countless examples of the first mover doing something really cool and showing that something is possible, and then being unwilling to innovate afterwards. I mean, another example, Blockbuster made a big innovation on allowing you to watch a ton of movies and films without having to buy it. And after they have that success, you have the innovator's dilemma where you don't want to innovate because if you do, you're afraid of losing the current market or the current product that you're selling. You don't want to potentially stop being able to sell that thing. So an innovation feels like a threat. You saw this with film as well. I think I don't remember the company, but they literally invented digital cameras first and then never released it because they didn't want to destroy their Kodak, because they didn't want to destroy their current business. So I am seeing the exact same thing. It is literally the exact same thing in Bitcoin, where the number of updates are so sparse that innovation is really non-existent, and people right now, while the religious fervor is very strong, are claiming that this is what makes Bitcoin great, that it never changes. And it's like, no, like if you look through history, every single technology that stopped innovating died away. And just like I've gone through now and listened to like 10 different Snowden interviews. I went and listened to a bunch of McAfee interviews. Like I just went down the rabbit hole. And like Snowden talked about how he has literally argued with Bitcoin developers for a decade trying to get them to implement privacy. And then he realized they're never going to do it because they're afraid that if they actually put privacy into Bitcoin, then all of a sudden regulators, all of a sudden politicians are going to stop favoring them, are going to stop agreeing to join in for this whole like mooning campaign. And it's because the government wants to be able to track everything. So I think that the really smart people who are a part of Bitcoin actually know that like privacy is never going to be a part of it, and they're willing to sacrifice that in order to stay in the good graces of the powers that be, if that makes sense.
Well, we know that Bitcoin and privacy aren't two things that go together. Look at the recent things with Samurai and all these issues, just thing after thing after thing going after Bitcoin's privacy. Tornado Cash on Ethereum, all these things that are just really, really bad. And it's like you cannot survive without default privacy.
Yeah. I feel like right now is a a good time to be getting into Monero because we are in two things. I think we're in a negative sentiment period for Monero just because of the delistings that have happened. The fact that it's a little bit harder to get to means that there's like a lot of average people that are just not going to do any of the extra work needed to buy it. Which means that the price is probably a little bit more suppressed than it would be besides that. And I feel like that it also means that there's like positive catalysts ahead, because like eventually once the government really stops cracking down, maybe we get a new administration, or maybe just the Democratic Party just becomes more pro Bitcoin because they don't want to lose votes. All that political nonsense is going to be what it is. But I think there's a very good chance in the future that we do get some relistings, or we see like a Coinbase listing Monero, which is just a positive catalyst in the future. But then the second thing that's going on right now is we are just seeing how ridiculous governments can be. I mean, you just see what's going on in Britain right now, and how British citizens are just being like absolutely, I don't know if abused is the right word, but treated differently. And I mean, obviously all of you guys are aware of like what happened a while ago in Canada with like the freezing of the truckers' bank accounts, but the amount of unrest globally, this like geopolitical tension, I think is also opening up people's eyes to the fact that, hey, this kind of joke, like, oh, what do you need Monero for? Only criminals need it, is going to just really become more and more foolish as the things that people view as normal, the things that people view as being something that should be accepted, all of a sudden become non-normative. All of a sudden, things that you were like I like personally, like, why do I need privacy? It's like, well, because the things that right now you think are fine, the government is never going to have a problem with, they're going to become crimes in the future. And it's like, I don't know if any of you guys are religious at all, but if you look at like the book of Revelation, it's like even being a Christian is going to stop you from being able to buy and sell in the future. And even if you don't put any credence in the Bible at all, it's very easy to see that like over time governments rise and fall, and they become more and less totalitarian. And there are going to be periods of time where just donating to the wrong political party can get you put in jail. If in Britain posting a meme can get you put in jail, it's like buying from someone who has been blacklisted. It doesn't matter if they're your friend and you're just trying to help their small business. It's like you get connected to that, and now you are a target as well. It's just like privacy is very important. I mean, this is a very, very simple, like small scale example, but just seeing how much more like conservative leaning posts on X have been getting liked, like the number of likes have been increasing so much after they made likes private, because all of a sudden now you're not thinking about, oh, who's going to look at this and dislike me because my viewpoint is non-normative, or like I'm going to get canceled if I like this post. That fear goes away, and all of a sudden, like you just saw the number of likes on a certain side of the spectrum that's afraid of being canceled just increase. So yeah, it's really, really important, and I think more and more people are going to realize that over time.
Yeah, I had maybe not totally off topic, but I had a question regarding Ethereum versus Sol. So you do a lot of NFTs, you do a lot of meme coins, gaming kind of stuff. Have you seen a big pivot from Ethereum to Sol? Is there like, could Sol be stealing some of Ethereum's thunder? What's your take overall in that situation? And of course, tied into that, do you see any privacy solutions on Ethereum or Sol that are viable, or do you see anything that could be up and coming? We had the Tornado Cash incident. What's your take on all that?
So Ethereum really does not work for gaming. At least the layer 1 doesn't. Layer 2s can. It's way too expensive and way too slow. I mean, if you think about being in a game environment like an MMO, if you're playing World of Warcraft, for example, and you want to trade something with another player, and it takes several minutes for the block to go through. It's like that just slows down gameplay way too much for it to work. And then the transaction fees on Ethereum are also just way too high. And because of that, it's like there's a lot of stuff that was built originally on Ethereum layer 1 that has either had to transition, or stuff that's cheap just literally never moves because it's not worth buying or selling something for $5 if you're going to pay a $2, $3, $4, sometimes during Ethereum, a $30 fee for the transaction if volume is high enough. So I definitely think that layer 1 Ethereum does not work for gaming. A lot of games have been transitioning to Solana or a different layer 2 on top of Ethereum, and that does seem to work quite a bit better. But like with Solana, you have to not really care that much about decentralization, right? But I've taken a step back from the gaming space a bit. Like I've been taking a several month break because I had an issue in the gaming space where one organization that I was making a ton of positive videos about really started making a number of really bad decisions. And I'm going to be honest with my audience if they're making a bad decision. And that organization started getting really, really frustrated at me because I turned from an ally to what I thought was still an ally providing constructive criticism, but they only wanted positive feedback, right? And then they literally froze earnings for assets that I had paid literally tens of thousands of dollars for. They decided I wasn't going to be able to earn in the game with those assets anymore because I became a critic. And it's like this whole kind of vision that I had for why crypto gaming, why on-chain gaming was going to be amazing. Like a company can't take your asset from you. Well, it's like, does it matter if they blacklist the asset and then you can't use it in the game or you can't earn anything from it anymore? It's like literally the exact same thing. So I don't know what the solution is. Not even getting into the privacy, but just how do you even get a decentralized gaming experience? Because building a game is expensive. You need a lot of money and you need a lot of developers if you're going to make something AAA. So I don't know. I don't think anyone has actually yet come up with a good solution for that. Sorry, what was the rest of your question?
It was mostly about are there any privacy solutions like in the works on those chains? Was what he was wondering if if there's any future privacy chain or privacy implementations on those chains that are.
Two things. One, what do you see on the horizon? Is there anything like viable? And then kind of what's your take on everything that happened with Tornado Cash, for example?
I don't know of anything yet that has really any promise. Now that does not mean that there's not anything, right? Like I don't know everything that's going on in the space, but at least what I'm aware of, I don't think there's anything private in the crypto gaming space. I mean, everyone in crypto gaming cares about mooning first and second, fun gameplay. And those problems have not even been solved. Like there's just really not even that many fun crypto games yet. People aren't even thinking about privacy yet in the crypto gaming space. So anyone who is working on privacy with like smart contracts or things like that, they're in this community. You guys know more about that than I do. They're not in the gaming community. And then as far as Tornado Cash goes, once again, like you guys are going to know more about that than me.
I have a thought for you that it's kind of interesting that you're on the stream right now because it's been rolling around in my head for quite some time. So when it comes to like phone games, you always have some kind of in-game currency like diamonds or credits or silver or whatever. And people actually value their stuff in the currency that they're using, right? Yeah. But in places like Solana or Ethereum, like even the Ethereum themselves, they talk about the transactions in like dollar terminology. So they almost talk about even the stuff that they're doing in-house as though it's an exit strategy for the dollar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that gaming is one of the places where, I mean, okay, let's be honest. A lot of people are trying to like play to earn games. People wanted to like buy assets to play the game, to make money, to cash out. But there is going to be a moment where a game lives on its own, where people want to play it just because it's fun, where it's also connected to the blockchain. And in that ecosystem, and I've seen tastes of it. I've seen glimmers of it shining through the Moon Boys. There is that transition where people are talking about things in the term of that currency, like how much this quest will earn in the in-game currency, what items I can buy in the game with that in-game currency. And the moment where people start caring about that world, start caring about their character, the power that they have, the stuff that they own in the world, you will start to see that transition happen. But this is something that has to happen over a long period of time. I think we need to see more destabilization in some of these major government currencies. When I think you see something like a dollar collapse, it's like that's when it becomes open season, right? That's when all the paradigms fall apart and can be rebuilt. So until that happens, I think you are gonna mostly see things still compared to the dollar. But there will be a time, like the dollar, every single currency throughout history has had a limited lifespan, and there will be a time in the future when the dollar's time has ended. And I think there's a very good chance that a digital currency might take the place of a government backed currency as what people denominate goods and services in, and think about value through the like prism of.
Have you ever read Ready Player One?
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I love that book.
I love that book. And so many of the things you're talking about here are in that. So the government's destabilized the currencies. And so the coin of the realm is the credit or whatever for the game. And that's what the Oasis coin is what they use as currency because it's more stable than the dollar, the euro, the yen, and all the global currencies. And that governments are just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. And I think that book really shows what is possible in the future, even though it was written in 2011?
Yeah, no, I think that book is originally what got me excited about the on-chain gaming space. And when I realized that Ethereum could be, when I realized that Vitalik created Ethereum because of a World of Warcraft experience that he had, where I think one of his items got nerfed or changed or something, and he got really mad. And he's like, all this needs to be on the blockchain. And that's why he created Ethereum. I was like, yeah, this is incredible. But what's interesting is that Ready Player One also shows one of the biggest issues that we still have not solved with on-chain gaming yet, and that is that like the whole plot of the book is the Oasis is still centralized, and the power is going to be going to someone who is not trustworthy. And the main character, Parzival, is trying to win this quest in order to not let the evil corporation that is also trying to beat the quest to get ownership, so that they don't take and ruin the Oasis. So this whole idea of centralization being a major flaw and weakness, even in the super futuristic utopia of the Oasis, is something that we still need to figure out. And I don't know what that solution is, but an Oasis like experience with a digital currency that also figures out a way to decentralize itself, perhaps after it's been made. Maybe they open source it or something like that. I don't know how it would work. But I do think that would be such an exciting and cool future. And a privacy coin is going to have a place in that future.
What kinds of what kinds of native games, like completely lives on the blockchain or completely lives in a layer 2? Like, are there any native games that are just completely decentralized, trustless? I know they can't be fully, like, there's no way you could play, I don't know, like a first person shooter or any of these like really involved games. You probably couldn't do that on the blockchain, but is there anything like Dungeons and Dragons, that like versions of those games that live completely natively on some blockchain or on some layer 2?
Well, so I do think that super fast-paced games like a first-person shooter can exist on the blockchain, because what you have to realize, it's like not every single thing needs to take place on the blockchain. Like the bullets don't need to register on the blockchain, and the hitboxes, like all of that, you can have decentralized servers or something like that. Which there will be some issues with that compared to having a centralized server as well, but only certain things, only transfers of value really need to be on chain. Like perhaps your reward after you win a match can happen on the blockchain, or your skins. Like if you're thinking like CS:GO, if all of CS:GO's skins were just tokenized onto the blockchain, it's like that game would still work just as well. And people already buy and sell CS:GO skins for real money. There's no reason you can't just tokenize those and CS:GO would still work. The decentralization of the servers, of the actual development, that sort of thing is an issue. Another issue right now in crypto gaming is you have video game creators trying to make Web3 games that know nothing about economics and have these like inflationary economies that just fall apart. Or you have these like economists who are more on the money side of things, who see Web3 as an opportunity to make money and have never made a game before. So there's really this issue as well as the decentralization issue. But I actually think it will be possible for all sorts of games to exist on the blockchain, because just the assets that matter in the games need to exist on the blockchain. The game itself can exist on some sort of like decentralized server through decentralized nodes or something like that. As far as what exists right now, I don't think there is a single decentralized gaming project. To be honest, there's a lot of gaming projects. Like if you look at Illuvium, for example, Illuvium does have a DAO and a governance system in place, and they do have a roadmap that does want to move toward decentralization. But right now it's entirely a centralized thing. I think it's like that's similar to Solana, right? Like Solana wants to become more decentralized in time, but right now it's still pretty controlled. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%. I have a friend that has this idea of putting, it's like Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe something kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. Just putting that totally on the blockchain, where you have different characters that, like, everyone can have their own unique character. I don't know, you can get XP, and you've got, all of like, because it's a pretty simple, straightforward game, right? There's not a whole lot of data or information to keep track of. You could even do it something like where different characters can be partially owned by like an aggregate of people, so that you could own part of a character and then be part of some voting mechanism to determine like the next action in the next game sequence that happens, something like that. I think he's developing it. I'm not entirely clear on the details, but it was something along those lines. Is that like, is there a demand for that out there? Or do people just not care enough about that kind of thing to actually engage?
So the issue is not that there's not demand for that or that it's not possible, because it is, and there is. The issue is that crypto games right now have to compete against these massive AAA studios. So as far as like card games goes, there's Gods Unchained, which is, I mean, it's getting close to AAA quality, but it's still just to be completely blatant, not nearly as fun as Hearthstone, for example, that Blizzard made. And until you actually have a Web3 game that is as fun, if not more fun, than the current most popular AAA games, the only people who are going to play it are people who want to make money from it. Because like if you're just playing it in order to have fun, it's like you're just going to play the AAA games that are out there because you can have a lot of fun playing them. So you're currently sacrificing enjoyment in order to play something that's on the blockchain. And like a lot of what I try and do on on-chain gaming is like hype up these projects and like talk about like how cool it is that you have ownership on them, and then I'm playing them and like trying to make them look as fun as possible. But it's an uphill battle, right? Because these studios are smaller than the AAA studios. The quality of the animations, the quality of the gameplay, it's just not as high as the AAA studios. And you end up only retaining the users that are hoping they can get something out of the game. And they might still play other games when they want to have fun, right? So until that switches and you have part of the audience that literally just wants to have fun in the game, the ecosystems eventually just dry up because people are trying to take out of the ecosystem, and people aren't continuing to put into the ecosystem just because they love the game, they love the world, they embody the character that's in the game and just want them to continue getting more powerful. It's like that is when you're going to start having a thriving world like Ready Player One.
Facebook metaverse. They've poured so much money into this thing, and it's a complete and utter failure.
Yeah, it's. I actually have. I haven't played it, but I saw screenshots, and I think that was enough for most people to decide not to play it. But it has. I mean, it's like if you care about decentralization, if you care about privacy, nothing that Meta does should have any interest to you.
Are you seeing any activity happening on some of the private smart contracts platforms? Have you seen anything gaming wise try to use Darrow, or not that we're like advertising Darrow by any means, but have they tried to use any of these platforms?
Not that I've seen. At least none of the big projects have.
Yeah,
like I
privacy
said,
coins are a niche space, then definitely privacy contracts platforms are even more niche.
Yeah, it is even more niche, and there's still just like major problems in the crypto gaming space that need to be overcome before people can even start thinking about the problem of privacy. Because it's like you never, like, I have not had a single comment on a single video asking about privacy or anything like that. None of the community is calling for that in the on-chain gaming space. I think most of the community is not even aware that it could be important. It's like people just want to actually own their stuff in a fun game, and we haven't even gotten to that point yet. I mean, like we maybe that's a little bit too pessimistic. There are some like reasonably fun games now where you do own your stuff, but nothing that's broken out to the mainstream. Nothing that a normal gamer. I mean, most normal like crypto gaming is a niche space, so most gamers just leave hate comments on my on-chain gaming videos if they like really only care about gameplay. Like they're a Grand Theft Auto player, they come look at a crypto game and they're like, oh, this is so dumb, no one's ever going to play this, why are you wasting your time? Because they don't see the importance of actually owning your assets. They don't see the importance of a digital economy actually becoming a real economy. But the potential is just so, like, I can't lose my enthusiasm because the potential is so exciting. Like, if you do have a massive multiplayer online game that has a real currency, that everything in the game are true assets that players actually own, it's like essentially you've set up a brand new country, and that country's currency is interchangeable with all other countries' currencies, and it can have its own governance, and it can have its own citizens. And essentially we will get digital countries in the future. But right now, the innovator's dilemma that we were talking about with Bitcoin earlier on, it is so strong right now in the gaming space. Like the game companies are not going to give up like selling a skin that there's an infinite number of that a player doesn't actually own when it's like free money right now. It's like League of Legends is never going to tokenize their character skins when they can sell 1 million of them that players don't actually own. It's like, why do I want to innovate, make this harder for myself, and potentially miss out on revenue because I'm limiting the number of these skins that exist, or something like that? And then what, the players are going to be able to resell to new players? Well, then maybe they're not going to buy from our store. It's like they're going to buy from another player instead of us, and then we're going to make less revenue. And the innovator's dilemma is so massive right now, that there needs to be like an incredible team that just breaks away, starts from scratch, and makes this happen.
You know, it would be hilarious is if something like Grand Theft Auto Moonbase, which doesn't exist, but hypothetically, let's suppose that something like Grand Theft Auto Moonbase comes around and there's this in-game currency that represents like the Moonbase, and this entire infrastructure gets built out online. And then someday far in the future, let's just say 50 years from now, there actually like is a Moonbase, and then 100 years from now, like it's highly developed, and that the in-game currency actually becomes the real currency of that new development. Like that would just be hilarious.
I think what's really interesting about this is if you think of it in reverse, which is people are clamoring for the right to own things. And a lot of them see the promise in the ability to actually own something in the digital space. But right here in the actual reality of the real world, your rights to ownership are being further and further consolidated into the hands of like corporate and governing bodies, right? Where everything is becoming a subscription model, and everything is like, for example, titles, right? Like in China or Vietnam or all of these places, like you can't even actually have a title that means anything to the property where you build your house. Like the government claims that you have a maximum of 99 years before it's theirs again. And so you can't even like pass down an inheritance in most countries of real stuff. And the same arguments that are made for, like, for example, physical possession of gold, they also apply to like dead software projects. But then if you look like anywhere where the code base for a popular game has been taken, like a Command and Conquer Red Alert, and people are keeping it alive, the fact that you can have the software that you can continue to use and play it, and then your children can play the game that you played as a child and so on. But then you go back into the world right now where it's like, you can't buy a car and then pass it on to your kids and fix it anymore. Right? Like, and
you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is definitely unfortunate, the kind of trend that seems to be taking place in the world. And what's almost more sad than the fact that like those in power want more power, because like, okay, that makes sense. What's even sadder than that is how kind of unwilling normal people seem to be to speak out against it. Like even like so much, like I think the Monero community is actually a lot bigger than it appears, because so many people who are attracted to the Monero community care about privacy, right? And care about not standing out, of not being visible, of not being in the limelight. And I think because of this almost fear of standing out, of standing up against powers, which I mean, it's a reasonable fear, right? Because those in power have a lot more control. They have more power than those who are just like normal and don't think they can make a difference. But the honest truth is that it's like the silent majority is the majority. And those in power only have the power because we like allow them to have the power. But we're in this age where it's just like so easy to be distracted. It's like you can distract yourself for years and years and not even come out of that like cloud. And like I've been in it, especially with like weed and alcohol and like pornography. It's like I can just get trapped for years and come out of the trance and be like, well, what happened to that time? Like I've been wasting my life. What's happening in the world around us? Like so many people just like you can just lose sight of what's actually happening. But on a positive note, I think that because of kind of the type of person the Monero community attracts, I think the reason I picked this image, I think it's a lot stronger than people realize. I think that the base that's here is very exciting. Like people like Douglas and like the Monero, like as I've been learning about this space, I'm like, wow, there's a lot more going on than I realized. The fact that you guys are attracting some of the earliest Bitcoin developers and they're supporting Monero, they're realizing that this is the future. It's like, the longer the base, the deeper the base, the bigger the eventual breakout will become. And it's like, I'm excited now. Like I'm probably going to start making some Monero focused videos on my channel. A lot of my audience won't like it, but who cares? It's like, I think this is really important. And like I said, the transition will be slow at first. There's just a couple people break away from the Bitcoin maxi community or the Ethereum maxi community, but like those early adopters are followed by the majority of adopters later on. And when more people who care about privacy for privacy's sake, who have nothing to hide, nothing to fear, actually start standing up, like there will be a moment where it can no longer be stopped. I have a question for you guys. Do you know what happened to Dr. Kim? Like, how come he hasn't made any more content for like 2 or 3 years?
I've been wondering the same thing.
I mean, he pretty much said his piece though, right? Like, to be honest, everything that he needed to say has been said. You know, either people listen or they won't. I'd point that out. Like, everything in those videos is, you know, 10 times as true now as it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Everything you said kind of made me just cry tears of joy to hear somebody who's not a part of the normal community, the normal privacy hub, say that they're going to do these things whether their audience or whatever likes it or not. Like that, I think sends a really powerful message. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna be one of the smallest, and I think I'm early on this as well. But you listen to people like Tucker, the ex Fox News broadcaster. There was some post on X that went kind of viral recently, where he's talking about the importance of privacy, or even like Ron Paul. Who right now he thinks Bitcoin is something that it's not, because he's not technical at all, right? He has these views of libertarianism which are very foundational and powerful, but he doesn't have the technical savvy to really realize Bitcoin isn't all that he's hoping that it's going to be. But after this narrative, it's like a okay. I don't want to. I was going to say virus, but that's not. There needs to be what's a better word for it. But after it like gets into the contents, after you've heard it, after you've realized it, it starts to gnaw away inside, and you start to realize, wait, this is actually important. And once the cat's out of the bag, it's like you can't put it back in. And I think that is something that Snowden has been trying to push for. And like I said, on X, I've seen a couple Bitcoiners already break away. I'm an Ethereum guy who's starting to realize the importance of privacy, and it's slow, and it could still be a couple years of slow moving, but things that are true, things that are fundamentally important, they're not going to die away.
On-chain gaming. Hello. How do you see the type of transactions? Let's say I believe that Monero should make transactions like to buy a coffee. That would be like the base use case. Everyone should be able to do that, you know. And you brought up an interesting point that if like you don't need to keep track of all the bullets flying when you're playing right on the chain, but do you see it as well like that, or do you think that on-chain gaming, because of or just because it's merely digital and virtual that world, that it should have even another type of transaction, like more than the base. I hope I explained myself well.
So for, regarding the coffee thing, you're totally right. And I've been checking out some of the marketplaces, and I think that as an influencer, one of the ways that I can help support the Monero community is just sharing, so that more people understand the number of things that you can buy with Monero. And we've already seen this with Axie Infinity in the Philippines, when it was really blowing up before people realized that it was an inflationary economy and everything kind of crashed. There was literally a 6-month period where you started to see the majority of grocery stores, coffee houses, things like that in the Philippines start accepting SLP, which was a currency that you earned playing the Axie Infinity game. Unfortunately, that experiment fell apart. But it just goes to show that the business owners will accept the payment that their customers want to use. Like, if enough people start wanting to pay in something, business owners will start to accept it. I think one of the problems right now is that people are not understanding. There's not enough pain that's forcing people to understand why they should really care about privacy. And this might be a little bit nihilistic, but I think that if things like governments continue to degrade, and they start to become more irrational, they start to infringe on freedom more, this is going to wake more and more people up. And overall, it might have a positive impact. Because when the pain of not changing becomes greater than the pain and uncomfortability of moving to something new, it's like when that scale adjusts, that is when you start to see this mass migration. But right now, it's just not that painful to use the US dollar to buy a coffee. Even with 20% inflation, like, people complain a lot, but people still think, oh, they're going to fix it. It'll be okay. But eventually, like, we have some mounting issues like the national debt, where at some point, and countries moving away from the dollar, at some point, it is going to become very painful to use government-backed currencies. And in countries that have even less stable currencies than the US has with the US dollar, you've seen actually quicker transitions to digital assets. So I think it's important that more people that have influence, or even if you don't have influence, but you think you have an ability to communicate, start sharing things like Monero. It will make sure that when the transition inevitably does come in the future, Monero will be viewed as one of the prime candidates to be that money of the future. Because, like, right now, it's still up in the open, right? Like, most people have no idea. They haven't heard about Monero yet. And I do think that the community is the basis there, but
it's my humble opinion that Monero has not reached a censorship-resistant level of hash rate, which for me is the primary objective. And I think that adoption should firstly be on the mining side, because, like, there is this catch-22. People say, what comes first, the price or the hash rate? No, first you turn on your machine, you make the hash rate, then comes the price. As stupid as that, but so do you think that what do you think about that, of the censorship resistance of Monero?
So as far as hash rate goes, right, Monero has a little bit of a lower hash rate because of the fact that you mine it with CPU, GPU, right, instead of ASIC. So that inherently, I think, will keep the hash rate a little bit lower, if I understand things right. But it also means that the hash rate doesn't need, like, you need to set up a lot of CPUs in order to meet that hash rate, right? So I agree that the hash we need a, like, I will make some tutorials about how to mine I need to keep learning more myself so that I can explain everything accurately. But being a little bit of a novice to this space is actually a bit of an advantage, because since I don't understand things on the same amount of like a technical depth as a developer, I think people that are even less technical than me can understand my tutorials.
To be humble as you are explaining now, because it's funny, lot of Bitcoiners, lot of this moon philosophy is out there. They all pretend to be computer experts, you know, and we all have limitations in our understanding of the logic of these things. And it's important to recognize that Monero has its own way of widening this network. It works differently. In the case of, if you want to make an attack, you probably will notice it's not so easy, because you need to see things happening in the network, excuse me, and you need to operate in different manner as you do with Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, for example. So that's very simple things that people don't think about. People just logging into Binance and want their free money, and that's that philosophy for me. That's why people like me say, maybe you have a big price, but you are dead. So that's very important. And thank you, guys.
I have a question for Bawdy and Tux specifically. I know we'll probably have at least something to say about this, but very recently some information about the new Ryzen processors has come out, and a lot of the people reviewing it are reviewing it for their own reasons, right? So like gaming channels reviewing them for gaming and all that. But what I've noticed is the power efficiency of this new generation of Ryzen processors. I can see a very interesting use case for Monero on these new Ryzen processors. Has
Dude,
anybody
I know, it's crazy. I've almost bought one to try like mining with it to see. Now, we don't have the new Ryzen 9s yet. The newest one that you can actually buy right now is the
That's why I haven't tried either,
Ryzen
but I'm
7
just like,
9700X.
this
But
might be epic, right? Like,
it is pretty good efficiency. Really good efficiency.
and the hash rate
He's
that one processor can crank out too. It's like both efficient and like, think about the hash rate it'll probably get.
Yeah, I mean, so I definitely want to wait to see what the new Ryzen 9s will do. Because I've actually been looking at buying a little bit new hardware recently, so I've been doing a bunch of research on this stuff. But yeah, the new Zen 5, it goes from a like 7 nanometer to a 5 nanometer node process, so it gets a bit more efficient. But also the multi-core performance goes up quite a lot too. Now the Ryzen 7 still has an 8-core 16-thread part. So I do want to see what the Ryzen 9s will be able to bring out. But yeah, historically AMD Ryzens have been the best for running Monero. So I am also very curious to see Alaskan on what the efficiency plus hash rate would be on some of the new Ryzens coming out. Anyway, I think that was a side step.
I don't know if you saw that new office that I built and all that. I'm getting it all wired out for basically being like a little server hub for Heat and Chloe's house. But like my thoughts about that now is like, if the Ryzen 9 is anything, or I mean, I wonder if, you know, just like you had your like 5950Xs or whatever the 50X version of the Ryzen 9 is going to be, because you get to that level and they basically design them like servers, you know. Or I wonder like what the Epic technology is going to run like with that, because I was really starting to think about the whole like pivot to ARM just generally. But I don't know, there might still be some juice to squeeze when it comes to the data centers and like x86 stuff. And it's, you know, and I feel like that whole thing, like people just missed the shit out of it. Like they did not, or at least where I'm looking, like when I look at the actual numbers, the same people are like, this is not a worthwhile buy. And I'm like, but look at that performance efficiency. Like, if, you know, it like outside of your little bubble, like that's actually really interesting, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely caveats there. In terms of getting more CPU cores, at the moment, I would say your average normie doesn't have any more need of additional CPU cores above, let's just say like 8 to 12. 8 to 12 is going to meet all of your needs, everything that you want to do. It's going to keep you running parallel processes, you know, so you're live streaming, or you're playing a video for your kids in the next room at the same time that you're you know, you've got like 50 tabs open on your browser, stuff like that. So for most people, you really don't need that many more cores. Who knows what kinds of things simultaneous multi-threading is going to do for you, right? SMT. You know, there has been kind of this lag where there's been extra processor cores available, but programs haven't really been written. They're catching up, but there was really this big lag for programs being written to be able to take advantage of that simultaneous processing. At the same time, if you're someone that does need some kind of small home server, right? Like, so for example, maybe you've got a ranch out there and then you want to set up a series of cameras to monitor everything that's going on. And then you want like highlights when there's certain types of movement that it detects, right? Like you're going to need to dedicate a few processor cores just for that. Obviously, you know, you're going to want to mine some Monero. And then hypothetically, if the network grows, like it could be the case that just to run a node, you basically need a processor core running all the time just to keep up with all the transactions. You know, we would be looking at millions of transactions a day if that were the case. But, you know, hypothetically, it could be the case that you need an entire core or maybe 2 cores just to verify all the transactions. If you were running a full node.
Bawdy, on that level, and while we have on-chain gaming on here, so there's this MMO out there. It's called Ashes of Creation, and I've been really obsessed with it because there's certain elements of the open source software community that are philosophically built into this game. So it is a proprietary software game, and it is, you know, it's a for-profit company developing it or whatever, but they actually have this open development ethos. So as they're building and developing the game, they're including the people who intend to play it into the development of the game, and they're actually like changing their development philosophies and stuff based on, you know, what the people in the core audience, let's call it, are suggesting, which I find fascinating because I'm a strong believer that basically like the banking cartels have taken over nerd culture, and they've taken, and it's kind of the same fight in a cultural sense, right? Where, you know, I used to be a comic book nerd, or if you've looked at D&D 4th edition and 5th edition, I'm quite the D&D connoisseur, right? Like it went from, you know, very like Lord of the Ringsy, like it was about the lore, it was about the fantasy, excuse me, to it was about like woke culture and like not hurting feelings and stuff. And you could just see like the never-ending infiltration in our culture. And Ashes of Creation took like this totally different approach to all of it, right? Like it went way back into like old school Pathfinder, like well, the reason why I bring all of that up and how this ties into processing and threads and all of that is the way that servers have been hosted forever, right? The most impressive leap forward in having like lots of servers, but also having each server have lots of players that can interact with each other simultaneously. So World of Warcraft had come up with all of this really cool technology to be able to have a lot of players in one location interacting with each other. And then they started building like layers and like server sharding and all of that. And then development in that area basically died, right? Like just nobody was coming up with anything. Well, there's this total like vaporware scam game, depending on how you look at it. I think it's called like it's like the space MMO. I forget what it's called, but they had made, after like I think it was like 10 or 20 million dollars in development, they had designed like kind of this idea for how they were going to make it easier to have even more players in one area interacting with each other. Well, Ashes of Creation, about 3 months ago, I think it was, they released some of the infrastructure behind how they did servers. And with this tiny little budget, they had managed to incorporate multiple threads into running a server at the same time in a way that nobody else had ever done. And the reason why I bring that up is, there's these major soft or hardware architecture people, like they'll come up with these great ideas, but then the software people don't know how to use them. I mean, it's especially true in things like quantum computing, right? Like, who's writing software for quantum computers right now? Like, basically no one. It's always a hobby project. It's only profitable if you're in somebody's R&D at some major corporation, and that technology is going to go in a black box to die, right? But meanwhile, in the enthusiast and gaming space and in the crypto space, people are taking all of these incredible architectural possibilities like multi-thread. Or remember when we covered the using existing internet infrastructure, somebody had 1,000 folded bandwidth with, just like a home-based research project. This guy had figured out how to improve bandwidth with existing networking technology, right?
That was fiber optic. They figured out how to pump a terabit per second over existing fiber optic. You have to upgrade the modem infrastructure, but the existing fiber optic infrastructure apparently can support it. I think that was like a Japanese research project, and that was very recent.
Yeah, and one of the things that all of these things tie together, right? And oh, by the way, on-chain gaming, I appreciate that you came onto the show with all of us. The reason we do this show is for stories like yours, and I appreciate you sharing your story. The reason why all of us come here every single week, week after week, is we are hoping that people such as yourself, an entrepreneur, and others will come on and share your stories and all that. So thank you, by the way, very much. But one of the things about the way that the hardware and the like processor infrastructure, it's usually the enthusiast space, like gaming, like or for example, like financial trading and stuff. Like think about how front-running algorithms led to what today we use for predictive and learning, advanced learning, AI and stuff like that. Like predicting stock markets and predicting momentum trades and all of that is what built like a large section of the the modern feedback loops of large language models and so on. And that was back in must have been 2000. And so a lot of people probably can't appreciate just how important people trying to figure out how to be able to trade an item on a clunky blockchain like Ethereum will probably eventually be like a magic, like the secret sauce for something like DarkFi to be able to send like some smart contract that could lead to some revolutionary technology or whatever. These forward progress, these things usually come from the hobby and enthusiast space.
Hey, can I break in a second to ask, is Tari relevant to on-chain gaming? Also, might be a good time to get Fluffy on for an update on that.
I also would love an update on Tari.
I'm not that familiar with Tari, but I just want to take a step back and make a comment about what you were saying, Alaskanon. It can oftentimes feel very slow and sloggy when you're in the middle of a revolution, like Monero, or honestly all of these converging revolutions that seem to be happening all at once. It can feel slow, but it's only because we're in the middle of it. When you take a step back and when you look at what happened over a decade or several decades, it can take your breath away. So I think another one that's happening right now is like autonomous vehicles with Tesla. And I test I have full self-driving in my Tesla, and it's been like 2 or 3 years of just like very slow progress, and it can feel like nothing is happening. Like, is it actually getting better? Like, is this actually going to be the future? But then you take a step back and you look over 3 years at how much more the car can do now than it could do 3 years ago, and you realize, like, wait, this progress is actually blistering. Like, in the course of history, in the context of history, this is insanely fast. So as far as the Monero community goes, it might feel like stories like mine are sparse, are far and few between, but I want to encourage you guys, like continuing to show up every single week and do this and just be here and make sure that there is somewhere where people can learn if they are interested. Like, it does make a difference. And you oftentimes probably don't know when you might be converting someone or bringing someone into the Monero community because they might not make a comment. They might not pop on and chat. But I think that over time, when you guys look back a decade from now, you are going to be absolutely blown away by the difference that channels like Monero Talk made on not only the crypto gaming space, but the entire world, and the importance that this currency might have in different futures that might come about. It's going to be far more impactful than you guys realize when people are able to eat because they can buy or sell something with a private currency. And that's literally the difference between being able to feed their family or not.
Shane, have you heard about Monerotopia yet? Like the conference?
Yeah. I've heard it mentioned
there,
a couple
right?
times.
Like,
It's in Mexico, right? Mexico City.
Roma.
What's the date? I think the issue is that I have a younger sister who's getting married.
Time for a plug, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, but I'll do my best right now. So there is a website, Monerotopia.com 2024, and you will find all of the relevant information, including the ability to purchase your tickets now. They are thousands and thousands of dollars less than the giant scam conferences like Bitcoin. I mean, even the VIP tickets aren't even 250 if you're measuring it in US fiat Fed notes, which I'm sure everybody is in a rapid hurry trying to part with as quickly as possible in order to join us at the Monerotopia conference. But general admission is $89, a screaming deal. So buy 7 just in case your family wants to come. I know I have more than what I really know what to do with, but anyway. And then another thing. So Slave Blocker had mentioned how important it is to add to the hash rate, but another element of why Monero is so powerful and secure is the way that nodes are done. They're very similar to what people are used to, but it's the small differences that make nodes more interesting and effective in the Monero world. Well, this gentleman, kind enough to slave away week after week to make sure Monerotopia goes on, Doug Tuman there, he put together a project for something called the Monero Nodo, and I'm sure his bank account is crying because of the idea. But he's building a well, not him, but people who are building it, that he's kind of not only financing out of pocket, but then on top of that, selling it away day after day. There is something called the Monero Nodo, and the idea behind it is supposed to be a plug and play, ultra super mega secure, easy to use node that just runs in the background. And you know how when you're using Monero, you'll have to like sync your wallet and all of that other stuff. Well, it brings the best of both worlds. Like a light wallet can be used at the level of security of, a full wallet on a graphene phone, as long as you're using a graphene phone, which I certainly hope you're using a graphene phone, homie. But anyway, you'll be able to have a light wallet with all of the kind of security that you would get out of a proper wallet. And I would assume that Cake Wallet is also working on having like that level of interoperability where if you're hosting your own node, you can connect to that node without having to wait to sync with the blockchain and all of that. But these little advancements are, in my opinion, they're massive, because I think one of the problems with normie adoption of like on-chain level 1 transactions in a proper private digital currency are things like syncing your wallet, or are things like being able to use it in the secure and best possible way without having to learn, you know, astrophysical biology or whatever madness that is required for the average person to just buy a coffee, you know. But the last thing about having these conferences that I think does at least as much as having these shows is the key mechanism for getting people to jump ship from one fiat to another, right? Even though there are technically currencies that have never died, right? Like gold or silver or so on. Like the amount of silver in a denarius from 2,000 years ago is still the same amount of silver, just generally speaking. I mean, I guess it's technically degraded a little bit. But the thing is it's actually the utility in the alternative that causes them to jump ship. And for those of you who listen to this show a lot, I'm sorry to kind of be a broken record here, but let me give you an example real quick on chain. If you want to make a transaction from here to, let's say, Venezuela or Iran or Russia, or even somewhere where it's legal, like Mexico, there are endless hurdles for me to pay somebody in a foreign country. But with Monero, it is just as easy as paying my neighbor. Or another thing is, a lot of the gold community is just as bad as like a Bitcoin maxi at not seeing the reality right in front of their face, which is, if I have gold and I'm in Alaska, which I am, and all of my gold was lost in a boating accident. If I want to purchase avocados from Mexico, right? I can either send the gold to Mexico, or they can send the avocados to me and hope they get paid. Or I can bring in a trusted third party, or I could do like half down, half on delivery. All of these methods are less than ideal, right? But with a cryptocurrency, you can use things like multi-sig wallets, or you can peg them to a smart contract that needs to be fulfilled on, or whatever. Now, the ease of use of that utility might have gone down a little bit, but business-to-business transactions are already more complicated than something like a multi-sig wallet. You're talking about like international bonds. You're talking about, you know, putting a certain amount of capital up and getting the credit from a third-party financial institution and all this other stuff, phone calls and emails and, you know, wire transfers, and it's a nightmare. A multi-sig wallet is like mind-bogglingly easy compared to any of that stuff. And the thing is it's the utility of something like Monero combined with the reliability of its ability to deliver on the promises of the currency that make it so interesting for somebody who maybe the dollar hasn't collapsed yet, and you would still be interested in using Monero over using fiat, right? And what's really, really cool about that is, so for people like myself that, you know, the industries that we're in, right? Pay on delivery is almost dead, right? Like something being payable on delivery has basically evaporated, and, you know, most people don't even think about what it means anymore. However, when somebody signs for for having received their goods and services, you could also make that the condition by which the multi-sig wallet releases the funds, right? So you could bring back payment on delivery and reduce the overhead of, you know, your accounting team and invoicing and all of that other stuff. And then you can even have that go into its own wallet that, you know, you can put your own notes on it and all of that stuff. Your wallet could even keep track of for you. You know, it could privately take some kind of location data from where you are and use that as verification for the release of the funds is in fact this customer and so on. the utility of a private digital cash is so mind-blowing if you're in the business space, that I think we don't have to wait for fiat to collapse. In fact, the collapse of the fiat may be the utility of the crypto. And so putting all of these things together, I can't wait to see you in Mexico. I bet you we'll be the best of friends, or at least, you know, you can hate me and I'll think you're a great guy. And I am excited to know that, you know, you'll be plugging in your Monero Nodo shortly. But what do you think about the utility argument is what I would really like.
First of all, I will buy a ticket. I just checked, and Monerotopia, it looks like, is a week after my sister gets married. So there's no conflict there.
Why is she not getting married in Mexico at Monerotopia? Like, I will donate to that, by the way. Mexico is a beautiful place that time of year. Roma is like the romance. Like, it's better.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Maybe I'll pitch it to her. No, people have already bought tickets. They already have a venue.
Here's your honeymoon. It's Monerotopia. I got you and your husband and your future child and all that a ticket, and we'll see you there.
Yeah, I'll let my family know. Maybe someone will want to join me, or one of my friends or something. But yeah, I'll try to make it. I'll try to make it. But regarding what you were talking about, I think it's so true. You're right. It could be the adoption of something like Monero that does lead to the collapse of these currencies. And it's possible that like the pain will increase slowly to use these things even before they finally collapse these things regarding government-backed currencies. But I just want to talk for a second about what you were saying with like
before you
the utility of gold.
Yes, gold. Before you start, I will add only one thing. Referring to what Lasconon just said. Imagine if you can teleport or instantly send physical gold from Alaska to Mexico, for example. Mm-hmm. Well, this is possible if you securely interchange, being anonymous in the street, both on the same time and on the same day with Monero. Why not? Internet and gold. So that's why I think
you got too far away from your microphone. Can you start over from?
Yeah, because I have also connection problems. But having this thing on built with internet interface, and at the same time supported by Monero network, I think that's a breakthrough in gold and silver trading, because if you have the ability in your home sitting matching how we say a trade in gold and silver in exchange of Monero locally in both these different places on the world, this is good for Monero and good for precious metals. So I don't know because when you do this kind of activity, you need to be secure. You need to use Monero. So you are hiding from criminals in some way, and also from some potential corrupt policeman in Mexico, whoever knows. But both parties have different interests, and they don't know to accordingly talk to each other to arrange all things. They just use Monero, and if Monero is used enough on this type of transaction, I think it's both good for silver and gold. And I don't know why some silver community expert just take like this guy on Chain Gaming and talk about this possibility with Monero. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you're right. Gold has a lot of shortcomings. I mean, McAfee talks about how you can't go from one country to another country carrying a lot of gold because they'll confiscate it from you, or like you're saying, you can't just teleport physical gold from one location to another like you can send Monero over the internet. So that is one of the major limitations, and Bitcoin people would agree with that, right? Like that's why they'll say that Bitcoin is superior, because you can easily send from one country to another, whereas you can't do that with gold. But then Bitcoin has a shortcoming that gold is superior in, and that's the lack of privacy with Bitcoin. The fact that every single thing is on the public ledger, and you can track it all. Whereas gold has this massive privacy advantage still, where you can have it and no one can know that you have it. You can have it stored and it's completely anonymous. And Monero solves both of these problems. Like, it's the best of both worlds, where you can send it from one country to another like Bitcoin, and it's private like gold. And I just think that that's incredible. It's like, why do I want to sacrifice one of these things when I can have it all? It's like, Monero's a no-brainer in that regard. And then I have one more thing that I wanted to say about gold, but Tux, you unmuted. Did you want to make a comment here?
Oh, no, you go ahead. You continue.
Okay. So then the other thing that I don't think people are thinking about, but is very interesting, because I like thinking on grander scales, like hundreds of year time frames. And we are getting to a point as human civilization where space travel is going to start getting drastically cheaper. I mean, it already is. It hasn't gotten cheap enough yet to affect the average everyday person. But what's happened over this last decade is we've gone from a situation where every single time that a rocket went into space, it like blew up and you like lost most of the value of building it, to Elon with SpaceX making them reusable. And if you think about how expensive it would be to fly from one place to another, if every single time the plane crashed, it would be impossible, right? Like, no one could afford to fly somewhere, because you're paying the entire cost of building an airplane every time you want to do a single flight. And that's where humans have been getting to space. So making rockets reusable is going to drastically make them cheaper, drastically make getting to space cheaper, which means stuff like mining asteroids becomes a reasonable thing, or space manufacturing, where potentially you can manufacture stuff in zero gravity, which could be a lot easier. And this means that there is a lot of gold out there, a lot of potential inflation out there. Once again, I'm thinking in hundreds of year time scales, where you see like asteroids that get pictures taken of them and like they get examined. I don't know how accurate the examinations are, but even if they're within like several orders of magnitude, it's like there's a lot of gold in some of these asteroids. And when it gets very cheap to go to space, there are going to be mining companies that are set up to try and mine gold on asteroids that are coming close to Earth, or even going out a little bit further. And I know this is maybe not going to be that big of a deal even in our lifetime, but if you're thinking of like generational wealth, I think that there is going to be a lot more gold inflation than people realize, as humans' reach expands broader away from Earth. And all of a sudden, it's not about how much gold is on Earth. It's about how much gold is within like a 10 or 15 year period, like away from us. And this is something that will push people towards Monero as well.
I can kind of poke a major hole in that thesis.
Okay, yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay, I'll let you do that thought, and then we'll try to wrap it up. But yeah, go ahead.
So the thing is for one, exploration in space, like, under the assumption that it would be the possibility that I think people think it would be, which I don't even agree with that, but I mean, there is still an absolutely mind-boggling amount of gold that's unmined on Earth, right?
That's true.
And one of the things is it's more about a price equilibrium, right? So the incentive to mine gold for even just the most basics of technology, like, for example, if you could make single board computers using gold instead of copper, the performance and the heat and all of that would be just absolutely incredible. It tarnishes less effectively. But I mean, and people do that with silver now, and they don't even recover the silver from those circuit boards, even though there's a considerable amount of silver. People don't even recover the silver from solar panels hardly at all, even though there's a lot of silver in the solar panels. It's all about a price equilibrium. But the thing is if you think of things in terms of intergenerational wealth, there's the general economist way of thinking of it, which is how many more dollars they have than the next guy. But then there's the real world situation, which is how much goods, services, energy, and so on do you personally have access to as a result of your inheritance? So to give you an idea, we'll just use the word GDP, even though it's like a completely like fucked system of measuring anything, right? How many goods and services are produced in a given period, right? If you have a massive explosion in the productivity for some reason, and you have a massive explosion in the amount of energy available to you, well, then technically, if you were holding energy stocks or whatever, you might see some kind of price suppression measured in currencies. However, you have more access to energy than ever before, and you have more productivity than ever before. Even if your number go up, Bitcoin Maxi Ethos says, "Oh, my gains, bro, my gains." It's like your burger just got cut in half as far as price, right? Or what? So you can get twice as many burgers with your Bitcoin than you could yesterday, but it would look like you took a hit financially, because most people can't think in terms of how much stuff can I buy with whatever currency I'm holding, right? And the thing is gold is so much more the case for that than basically anything else known to man, because the physical properties of gold and its rarity are fighting each other right now. Like almost every piece of dental work ever done would have been done in gold all throughout history if it was financially possible to do so. Almost every conduit in every building would be gold if you had access to gold on that level. Gold would so quickly replace copper for like so many uses, and you'd be right back to the situation where you need a larger supply of gold, right? If everybody was using gold and silver wiring in their house, you know how much less energy would go to ground? Do you know how much less natural gas you would be using? It would be absolutely mind-blowing, right? And it's always a cost benefit analysis. Well, copper does a good enough job. It's super cheap to get. It's everywhere. And so if gold was just everywhere, I don't think you would see a price collapse of gold. And the other thing is the utility of money itself would go down. So in other words, you would not see this mind-blowing inflation that goes on if all of a sudden people had access to thousands and thousands of tons of gold that they didn't have access to before. And the ultimate proof of that is the fact that there's lots and lots of gold right now that is not being used for anything at all other than it's being stored so people can claim that they own it, so they can use it as collateral, because that is its most valuable use case right now, right? As opposed to
Alaska, I just want to jump in and just thank On-Chain Gaming for jumping on today. Amazing that he discovered us and made his way to Monerotopia and the Monerotopia viewers on stage section. Thank you so much, man, for coming on today and talking to us. Alaska, sorry to jump in on your rant there. I'll let you get back to it, but I just want to make sure I got that out before Tux closed it out. So thanks, On-Chain Gaming. You're welcome to join the show.
I appreciate
anytime.
it. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being so welcoming, guys. This has been a really fun, engaging conversation. So I appreciate all you guys.
So the utility of Monero could see the same thing, right? Where if there's less of a demand for transactions, then in theory, it would cause the price of Monero to go down. So let me give you an example. If somebody figured out, like, one that a lot of people know, right? Food towers, right? If you could get a cheaper source of energy, a more effective version of glass or whatever, I mean, one tiny little change in the engineering of our food infrastructure could lead to a massive crash in the money velocity generally. And so let's say you're in a situation where money is entirely measured in Monero and people are only using Monero, and it's already got, you know, it's just running tail emission right now. So it's not like a lot is ever entering the supply. It's already hit an equilibrium. Well, the thing is if everybody's buying their food in Monero, and there's this massive collapse in the demand for purchasing food because communities are all building their own food towers, and then you just go to the local food tower, pick up your vegetables and all that stuff. All of a sudden now pig feed is virtually zero because you have an infinite supply of vegetables and so on. So you can feed your chickens and your pigs and all that for next to free. Now everybody's got their own chickens. Well, like 10% of all money velocity is food related, right? So that's a 10% reduction in money velocity. That'd probably result in like a 7% reduction in the value of Monero as a currency, right? But that doesn't mean that if you're holding a bunch of bags of Monero, all of a sudden you are like 7% less rich. Because the thing is that that money goes way further now. It buys way more stuff than it ever did before. So you're actually significantly richer, even though your bags are not as pumped as they were. And that's one of the things that, I mean, it makes me want to just rip my face off. If you're like listening to somebody like Peter Schiff talk about, you know, gold is up $400 over such and such time. And that means if you would have done this and that and whatever, the same guy who's arguing that the dollar is collapsing and the same guy that's arguing that fiat is collapsing and so on. And then his next argument, his very next argument, is the fact that it derives its value from the fact that you can use gold for all of these things because of its physical properties. And that's what gives it its value. Even though only it's like almost 99.9% used to put in a vault or put in somebody's safe. It is never used for anything other than collateralization financially, because of its price, right? And so if so the thing that you can believe each argument, but it is incredibly intellectually dishonest to believe each argument at the same time. Now, most people just have never thought it through, right? But the thing is if you're going to make an argument for utility, and then you're going to make an argument for supply, and then you're going to make an argument for what it can buy, being the currency. Well, all three of those things are happening simultaneously if you believe that they're true. Therefore, the price of Monero or gold or whatever could literally never reach zero, because there's always going to be an input cost, and the use case of everything goes up with its availability, right? So the thing is economies of scale, your margins always go down when you can produce more widgets, because people start buying more widgets because the price goes down. So you're making more money. So you invest in being able to make more widgets. And the next thing you know, you're making 2% per widget, but you used to make 100 and now you make 100 million. And the demand is so astronomically high that the economy of being in the widget business has never been better. And yet a startup trying to make widgets is looking at like a 2% margin, whereas the person who blazed the trail was originally talking about like 1,000% margin.
Yeah, no, I think you're very right. The all of the factors that go into the value of something all kind of play off of different inputs, and generally, because we're measuring things off of dollars for some silly reason, it kind of means that as dollars inflate, the moon kind of thing will look good, but that doesn't really matter, because what matters is the actual purchasing power of something, if that is why you own it. And I generally believe that the prices of things are going to fall, especially with artificial intelligence, things like humanoid robots. It's like going to continue to drive production cost of everything down. And you're very right. Holding anything like gold or Monero or even Bitcoin, you're going to be able to buy more with it in the future, simply because there's going to be more of the stuff that you want to buy, and it's going to be cheaper to produce. So I think all of that is all very solid points. But I do feel like Monero, as far as just as currency goes, like moving it from one country to another or things like that, even as collateral eventually, once it's more generally accepted, I think Monero is going to be superior as a use case than gold in all of those situations almost. But you're never going to be able to use it to move energy around or something like that, to put in your teeth, you know. So Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it all plays out. All very interesting points. Very, very intelligent.
All right, guys. Interesting debate. If you guys really want to talk about that more, you can set up an actual discussion. At this point, Alaskanon really needs to have his own show. I'm sure a lot of people would like that as he's staring at the screen in awe or disbelief. But thank you everyone for coming on. Thank you so much On-Chain Gaming for coming on and talking, giving your experience, how you got to the Monero community, how you were awakened into privacy and crypto. And it is interesting that you mentioned one of the first, revelations you had was after the Edward Snowden talk at Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see that one live, but I was actually doing a talk while he was doing his. But yeah,
if you haven't seen it, it's worth watching. I think you'll find it very encouraging about everything that Monero stands for.
Well, if you haven't seen Tux's discussion, it's like Snowden who? What? Like...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you could tell that Snowden's definitely awakened to the private stuff. I think he's avoided talking about specific privacy currencies at the moment because he doesn't want to lose his sort of platform he has, or I don't know. People can say what they want about that.
Yeah, people would get mad if he showed a specific coin at the Bitcoin conference.
Yes, exactly. But I will say that it's really cool that he was able to kind of prevent a somewhat more generic use case for why we need privacy, in cryptocurrencies in general. And that kind of led you towards finding out about Monero. That is very cool. And yeah, once again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for everyone for coming on. I do have a few super chats to read out that I guess didn't show up in the comments before I do close it out here. If I can find where that window went. There it is. All right. Thank you to Tour Guide for 0.0074 XMR. Welcome, newcomer. The land here is fertile. Thank you to Anon Viewer for sending 0.0033 XMR. On-Chain Gaming, there's a solution to that. It's called XMR Chat. Suggesting XMR Chat for, receiving super chats via Monero. And then thank you to XMR-Bank for sending 0.015 XMR. Welcome, On-Chain Gaming. So, warm welcome from the Monero community to On-Chain Gaming. XMR Chat is this newer tool that was developed that Doug mentioned earlier, headed by Fiat Demise.
Watch last week's show. Anybody who's interested, last week's show is an excellent place to learn about XMR Chat.
Yep, we demoed it quite extensively last week. Allows you to receive super chats via using Monero.
Mind-blowingly easy, by the way.
Very easy, very offhands, non-custodial, very fast, instant. You send it and it shows up like that. It looks like there might be an issue with the Twitch bot that wasn't showing comments inside the live chat, but that's okay because I can see them directly on the website. But with that being said, thank you everyone once again for coming on. This has been great. And we will see you guys next week. Any final words or thoughts?
See you at Monerotopia, audience. Can't wait to meet you.
Yes, guys, buy your Monerotopia tickets, early bird tickets still at Monerotopia.com. If you haven't yet and you want an easy to set up Monero node, go to Monero.com and buy your Monero Nodo. And as Alaskanon says, if you haven't bought 5 of those already, what are you doing?
And sell your old miners for new nodes on XMRbazaar.com because the money is made for the people, by the people at the bottom of the pyramid. Thanks so much.
I think it's funny that early bird specials are being mentioned by the resident bird of Monero.
That's correct.
The bird,
I am the early bird. We are still early, guys. All right, everyone. Thank you and have a good weekend.
God bless.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and ODYSEE, or listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or join us in the Monerotopia Telegram group. See you all next week.